Come on. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Cool. Can I get a roll call? Please and
Paula
thank you.
Kane.
Here.
Alyssa Kowalczyk.
Here.
Bree Woodward.
Here.
Kim McCormick.
Here.
Shauna Lanthorn.
Here.
Matt Sherwood.
Here.
Kate Knudsen.
Here.
Dawn Woodward.
Here.
Jack Sapia.
Here.
All right, if everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no buffer, so do that. Good for you.
Perfect. Alrighty, I'll start strong. So starting at the high school, a little bit of a sports update. I know it's been a while. So boys hockey had a tough loss, but put up a good fight against St. Thomas Aquinas on Saturday the 11th. Girls gymnastics, their season is going to host their second gymnastics meet at A2 Gym and Cheer, which will be their senior night on January 27th. Girls basketball had a great win against Pelham last Friday the 10th. And boys basketball had a tough loss last Thursday night at Pelham, but over Christmas break, they won 2 out of 3 of their games at their Christmas tournament. Winter track had a meet at Phillips Exeter on Saturday the 11th, with many people putting up some personal records and great performances by the Owls overall. They had their first qualifier meet this past Sunday at UNH as well. Ski team went to Pat's Peak on Thursday the 16th to continue their competitive season. And Unified Basketball already had a game at Pinkerton to start off their season and played Goffstown Thursday the 16th at home. Swim is going great this season as well, and they have many athletes who are qualified for the state meet as well as others that are very close. The Timberlane Wrestling traveled to Bedford and proved victorious yesterday in their match. And esports will be getting ready for their state meet as well. And also at the high school, on Thursday, January 9th, 7 Timberlane class of 2024 alumni came to share what their experience was like at their first semester at college, which was really cool to be able to talk to the students about how they're starting off their future. The Timberlane's health and wellness class at the high school participated in a self-defense session last week. The K-9 deputy Katie Abell and Shannon Duffy came to host that. And on Friday, the Milkman Improv Show hosted another comedy. At Atkinson Academy, Mr. Goddard's Jump Rope Club is in full swing, and students met after school in the gym during January and February to participate in this event. His Let's Get Moving program has also started to begin, and students come to school starting at 7:50 a.m. to participate in this fun program, which runs during January and February. Atkinson Academy had their winter concert on Wednesday, January 22nd at 7 p.m. in the PAC. Atkinson Academy's chorus band and string students will perform at this annual event as well. At Danville, the Danville School Winter Concert occurred Wednesday, January 15th at the PAC at 7 p.m., and students were able to showcase their amazing abilities on stage. Danville School also welcomed author Marty Kelly last Thursday, the 16th as well. At Pollard had their winter concert on Tuesday, the 14th. It was an awesome evening, and a special thanks to all the students who performed and the families who attended and came to support. Pollard's PTA coin wars are coming to a close. The students are excited to pick Mrs. Sully's next hair color, which I thought was pretty cool. And rainbow seems to be the popular suggestion among the students. Pollard's Girls on the Run is also set to start soon, and they're excited to bring that back again this year. At Sandown North, they are excited to be starting up their after-school winter enrichment clubs. They'll be offering a crafting club, a sewing and cross-stitch club, games galore club, and a Lego club as well. The 4th graders have officially taken over the morning announcements and are working for Ms. Sommers and Mr. Hamel to create Sandown's morning news, which are videos that are shared out to all the classes and the broadcast during their morning meetings. And they're looking forward to their winter concert on Tuesday evening, January 21st. At the middle school, at the beginning of January, on Thursday the 9th, over 125 people attended the high school informational night for the 8th grade parents. And this was run by the high school counseling department. And special thanks for them to making it all happen. So that is my update for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. A lot going on for sure. All right, do we have any delegates or individuals? All right, can I get a motion to move the 30 minutes to the end of the meeting, please?
So moved.
Moved by Shauna. Do I have a second? Seconded by Bree. Any discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Cool. All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes. We have a public set and a non-public. Let's do the public first, please. This is for the January 2nd.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 2nd.
I have a motion by Bree. Do I have a second? Second by Kim. Any discussion, amendments needed? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and abstain. One abstention. And then you have your non-public meeting minutes in front of you.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes from the January 2nd meeting.
I have a motion by Kim. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Sherwood. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor? Opposed and abstain. 801. Okay, if you could pass those back, please.
Thank you.
Right, getting into current business, where if the board is okay, we're actually gonna move up the personnel report section for one individual, and I'm gonna let Mr. Krieger take it.
Awesome. I'm going to ask Dr. Martin to introduce the recommendation for hire for a new facilities director. It's been a long process. I also wanted to thank Dr. Martin for her leadership and really stepping in to a role that was not going to be expected, but allowed that department to kind of move through and continue to function at a really high level. And we are excited to bring a candidate forward tonight for hire.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. I learned a lot, and I always say that I will continue to do this work for years as long as I continue to be able to learn. So I appreciated the opportunity in a very strange kind of way. This evening, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Frank Janvrin. Frank was one of the 7 candidates that we interviewed in our October process. He was a candidate that stood out to us at that time. We, as you know, went with another candidate at that time for a variety of reasons. However, Mr. Janvrin really showed us in the time frame from October to now his ability to be a good communicator, to reach out to us, to ask questions about the district, to ask questions about the interview, to continue to show interest in the Timberlane Regional School District, which means a great deal to me. In working through the interview process, learning more about Frank, he is very much a systems thinker. He attended a training we had on our building automation system, where it was very obvious to me that he was going to quickly be able to jump into our technology systems and to actually bring other technology systems such as Operations Hero to another level. In addition to that, his overall experience, and for me, coming from a working class family, while watching my own father work his way up into a leadership position in his own profession, and Frank has done that in the area of facilities management. We did a little bit of a different interview process this time. We had a core group of 5 individuals that met with the 3 participants that we interviewed in this round. We had 4, but 1 pulled out. Beyond the core group of 5 that met with these folks every day, each one of the candidates had an individual opportunity. We had 1 candidate attend our mechanics facilities meeting on the Tuesday. Frank did the building automation system training. They all had an opportunity to walk through our schools, and we collected exit slips from people that had interactions with them. We wanted this to be very authentic because we want the person that we hire to be that individual that can work with people, that's a good communicator, and also has strong content knowledge. So I bring before you this evening our candidate for facilities director, plant operations director, Frank Janvrin. If I may ask him to come
Yep,
forward just to say a few words.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I just want to take a minute and thank you for the nomination. I truly appreciate it. Everybody has been
You can have a seat.
It's not gonna be long.
We're very casual here. Oh, no, you're gonna be longer than you think.
I just wanted to thank everybody, true professionals, dedication to the students and the buildings, and I really look forward to being part of the team.
Any board members have any questions for How do you say your last name?
Janford.
Janvren. Does
Yes.
anybody have any questions for Mr. Janvren? Comments?
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm sure we will at some point.
Mr. Janvren starts tomorrow. We'll do a gradual introduction to the district, and then Tuesday he'll be here for our facilities committee meeting. And we have Sarah and I have a pretty strong, I think, entry plan for him. So all good.
Good stuff.
That's great. Welcome to the team.
Thank
We're
you
glad
very
to
much.
have you.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to make a motion to accept the professional
I'll
nomination?
make a motion to accept the professional nomination for Frank
Janvren.
Janvren, as facilities director,
Plant operations. Great.
Yes, that's the
plant
technical.
operations.
All right.
Director.
All right. Got a motion by Kim. Do I have a second?
That one, yeah.
Seconded by Don. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about your history and your background? I mean, we're gonna make a motion. It's a big district, a lot of square footage, as I'm sure you've already been made aware of. And we have ignored our infrastructure for decades. So it's a big job.
Yep.
We have a lot of critics here in the land of Timberlane, to say the very least. So give us a little bit of background, if you want. You don't have to, but
Absolutely,
yeah.
of course. So decades ago, I took a night job as a custodian in Georgetown. Sort of worked my way up through that, ended up as a head custodian for the Triton School District. Wanting to pursue sort of that facilities realm a little further, I started with Recovery Centers of America as the facilities manager there. Keep wanting to grow. I went through Mass General Brigham. I worked for CBRE. I was a facilities manager at in the Salem one and Ambulatory Center. A lot of Joint Commission things. I really wanted to grab that compliance. So my last job was at Tufts in Melrose, working for Sodexo as the director of facilities there. And wanting to get back into public service and serve the community and the kids. I thought this was going to be a great move.
Looking forward to working with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you
for
so
that.
much, of course.
Thank you for entertaining the questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
And I'm the easiest person on the board to deal with.
Well, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed and abstain. Welcome, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right. Moving back to current business, we have our 25-26 calendar. This is our second read. I don't believe anything's changed from last
No,
time.
there are no changes from the last meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, but
Do you just want to give a quick summary to the public, Sandy, about the fact that the graduation date really, like, between the two calendars that we pick, like, it's not really going to
Sure.
change anything, and the fact that this one's
Sure.
just
so the other calendar, just going back to the meeting on January 2nd, we brought forth two different calendars, one with a start date prior to Labor Day and one after Labor Day. The difference in start date, although we're thinking about weeks, it really was 2 instructional days. So if we had been looking at that calendar rather than the final end of school date of Tuesday, June 16th, that would have projected forward to Thursday, June 18th. State law requires that seniors, their school year, not be reduced by any more than 5 instructional days from the final day of school. So regardless of the calendar, if we went back 5 instructional days, we would not have been able to move the senior graduation to Saturday the 6th, because that Tuesday the 16th exceeds that minimum requirement of 5 days, right? So both calendars would have had the same tentative projected date of graduation.
Anybody have any other questions for Sandy? Thank you for that recap.
Sure.
Yes, Bree.
So if we have snow days and if we need to add on days, I know we convert to hours at that point, but it doesn't ever bump graduation back a week.
So unless there is any unforeseen, excessive, extraordinary weather event, I would not anticipate that we would end up doing that. We have quite a buffer with the number of
Instructional
days that
hours.
we could, if we convert to hours, I think it's well over a week. It might even be 8 or 9 days that we can make up. So again, unless there's some,
Snowgeddon.
right. It's doubtful that would happen.
It's gonna happen. Sorry. Shauna.
I'm sure this got asked at the January
Sure.
2nd meeting, but I missed, but just to make sure that I'm clear, these early release days that are sprinkled throughout the district are in alignment with our contract
Yes.
agreement for the CTE
Yes.
school districts
Yes.
to align with the law
So
requirement.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up because we did talk about that on January 2nd, but just to summarize, we also by law are required, districts that offer CTE or send their students to regional CTE centers, which we do to both Pinkerton and Salem. We are required as a sending district to align our school calendars to the calendars of the districts that offer and provide the CTE centers. So that would be Salem and Pinkerton. Back in October, we met as a 5-district group and aligned our professional development days and early release days. So all of those days are consistent across Wyndham, Pelham, Salem, and Pinkerton. So we are well within, there's a 10-day maximum of conflicts with those CTE centers. At this point, we don't anticipate that. At this point, we really don't have any conflicts aside from the start of school, but they don't start counting conflicts until after Labor Day. So we think we're well under that 10-day threshold.
Thank you.
Yep.
Shauna, we also had Lou come up to the table and ask what the teachers wanted because it was starting either before Labor Day or after. And then we also asked Abigail, student-wise, and they both wanted these.
Oh, I'm fully in
feedback.
favor of it.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying like feedback, like we asked.
Yeah, and I should
But
add
I
as
was-
well.
That's good. Thank you to hear.
Yeah, I was able to attend the middle school PTSA meeting this past Tuesday evening. And one of the questions that came up is if the school calendar had been approved yet. So I let the parents in attendance know that you were all considering it tonight. They asked about the start date, and for those in attendance, again, it was a small group, but the individuals who were there expressed that they preferred the before Labor Day start date as well. So
I hear it from someone.
All right, so this is a second read. So does someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the proposed 2025-2026 school calendar with a start date for students of August 27th,
Motion's been made.
2025.
I'll second. Okay, Shauna made the motion. Kim seconded. You guys are too fast for me tonight. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 801. All right. Next on the list is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Come on down.
It's the right distance about me.
Yeah, grab a chair. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Ginger.
Thank you for having us this evening. I want to introduce Tim Lena, who's student assistance counselor at the high school, and for many of you know Tim, and Mark Pasquini, who is health and physical education teacher at the high school. 3 of us are here to talk about the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that we'll be administering at both the middle school and the high school this year. I believe in your board packets, you have my executive summary kind of giving a description of what the YRBS, as we affectionately refer to it, is, as well as it's kind of a little bit of history about it, some logistics about how the survey would be administered at the schools, and just what parent involvement looks like and our obligations around notification to families with regard to the survey. We're happy to give you more of a detailed explanation and for the community, anybody watching, or if you'd like to just jump into questions about the survey, I'll kind of leave that up to you in the interest of time.
I think it would be good for the public to hear from your perspective what this survey is about.
And I'm happy to do that, but also this is a huge passion project for both Mark and Tim, and so I want to give you guys the floor if you'd prefer to just kind of jump in and.
Sure.
Okay.
We do have a history of doing the Youth Risk Behavior Survey at both the middle and the high school between the years of 2001 and 2011. It was extremely informative in terms of guiding our prevention practice for the district. Actually, in 2001, we were able to acquire a grant from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We were able to implement an evidence-based prevention curriculum in the middle school. We saw dramatic decreases in some of those risk behaviors just from that one intervention. So having the data really helps decide best practice in terms of moving forward and what the current trends are. You know, certainly looking at current trends around vaping and high potency THC products and things like that. I think we haven't taken a pulse on these things. The technologies have changed dramatically, and it really will help to inform our practice and our teaching practices, as well as many of you know that I also am actively involved with the Southern Rockingham Coalition for Healthy Youth. That's our community partners, and we really do have a lot of people at the table to try and address these things, because it really is a community problem. It's not a school problem. You know, but we need to partner with the community to make these positive changes using evidence-based strategies to reduce the risk factors and promote protective factors for our youth.
Mark and then Don.
Can you give an example from 2001? You said in the first year, the information you received was actionable and you saw results. Can you give an example as to what you discovered back in 2001 and how that changed the way the district is approaching some of these challenges?
Sure. I mean, one of the things we saw was that, well, in terms of the educational needs, we saw even that at the middle school level, there was not a lot of education around HIV and AIDS that was going on at the time. And so with this evidence-based curriculum, we were able to address some of that. There was also evidence that a lot of the alcohol was being purchased at some of our local businesses, some of the mom and pop stores or whatever. Our peer outreach program, in partnership with our coalition, started doing what they call the sticker shock, which is putting labels on multi-packs of alcohol, beer, and the wine coolers and things, alerting adults not to provide alcohol to minors because they could face a year in jail and a $2,000 fine. So that was an environmental strategy that our students actively were involved in with our local partners in business to alert parents. And that, again, dramatically reduced access to alcohol because adults were more aware not to provide that. So it really does make a difference to have evidence, you know, the data to help to drive our programming.
Good work. Don.
Couple little things, but maybe just so people know. Think about it in terms of access to grants and things like that. Without taking the survey, what is our situation relative to accessing state-provided grants to address whatever the risk need is?
Thanks for asking that, Don, because as I had mentioned, we did get that OJJDP grant early on as soon as we started taking the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. That also led to 10 years of funding of the Drug-Free Communities Grant, which funded our coalition to hire people and bring in trainings and all kinds of other resources to our district. The state has been getting federal block grants based on region, the statewide data that's collected. And unfortunately, again, there was a big gap in our particular region for many years. A number of schools had opted out. And so the state kind of gave up on being able, or didn't have the data to be able to show to get these federal block grants. So the data is absolutely critical in helping to guide, getting resources to where they're needed.
One of the troublesome things for people is to see the numbers when these surveys go out, not just statewide, nationally, and not just locally. But it hurts locally to see things and then wrap your head around what that means. But I think it's important then when we have the results from these tests, these surveys, that you come to put it in context so people understand what is actionable, what we should be looking at, or what we see that over time changes, and we start to wrap our head around why and what we can do further.
I think it's also, may I? I'm sorry, Jack, I know you're, is that
Nope,
okay?
you're good. Don, it's still Don's time. It is still Don's time. Go.
I'll All set.
All set, I'm sorry. I just wanted to also I think it's important to point out as well that the survey is highly confidential. And there's no demographic information, names, there's nothing that identifies a student when the survey is taken. And then that information is then aggregated locally, right, against the public health catchment areas. So it further kind of dilutes, if you will, right, the identification of where that information came from, right? So it's used regionally. We get our information, it's sent right to the superintendent, and then we are able to determine how we want to use that data and how we want to share it. But it is a highly confidential survey, and like I said, there's no identifying information for students on it.
Yeah, and it is also a voluntary survey. So if a student says, I really don't want to take this, they don't have to take it. If a parent wants to opt their child out of taking the survey, the parent gets to review the survey in advance, and they absolutely can contact the school and opt their child out of taking the survey.
And I would like to just add on to, we can get the grants, whatever, but this will also help Katie and I at the high school and health teachers at the middle school understand what we need to either spend a little bit more time on, maybe a little less time on, whatever, and we can tailor our health program and phys ed program too, for that matter, to better fit the needs of our community.
Thank you.
Jack?
So I think you guys don't get the credit that you're due, because I think you do some of the most important work here at the school. My second plug is to SOROC. If you actually understand what they do and how they do it and their involvement, now this is about catching and preventative stuff. The last time we all were here was, what was that, about 10 years ago maybe? We had and I think you hit the nail right on the head. This is a community problem. This isn't a school problem. So when you see something on social media about the bathrooms, but this starts at home. And I think we need to do a better job of communicating with parents and the community as to what these surveys result in. We did that roundtable. We had the Commandant of the New Hampshire State Police attend, congressmen, SOROC, clergy, all the locals, police and firemen came in. You guys, everybody was there. And we had about 5 parents and about 50 staff members, right? So it was disappointing, but I hope that this survey bears fruit. And my guess is the challenges have changed since then, right? A lot of different dynamics, and I'm just guessing on that, but my guess is we're looking at different things. Back then it was the opioids was huge. My guess is vaping is probably, so it's so understated what you guys do, because we can get kids as smart as they want, but if they destroy themselves along the way, what's the purpose, right? So thank you for what you do. And let me ask you this, how accurate do you think are the kids pretty straight up?
I'm very glad you asked that question. You will often hear kids say, oh, everybody lies on that thing or whatever, and that is totally untrue. It's been proven again and again and again in the research. If you preserve the anonymity of the students as they're taking these surveys, that their self-report is extremely accurate. Now, some kids will say, oh, everybody's exaggerating on it because they don't want their parents to be overly alarmed about the rates that are happening. And then some kids say, oh no, I would never dream of sharing the behaviors that I'm engaged in, so I would lie on that and underestimate. So they're playing both. There may be some instances where kids are not completely accurate, but the overall numbers that we're dealing with is a very accurate picture.
After the survey, I hope you come back and share everything with us, and then I hope we develop an outreach program going out to the parents, and the earlier the better. And I think you address this in the first, second, third grade, so we're not dealing with it in the 5th, 6th, and I don't want to say 4th grade, it just kill me. But so thank you for what you do.
the student perspective, what do you think about this?
Well, I know I work closely with Mr. Lena when it comes to like Life of an Owl Leadership Committee, and I know we in school climate. But I know we briefly talked about it when we were going down to the middle school. But I just think that like seeing the results and seeing the data, not only can it help just survey and be like, hey, just answer a few questions, but really as a student know what those questions are going towards, and it, like you said, it can help inform and teach them. So I can only see it, like you said, as like really beneficial to kind of being more informed on what I'm actually answering and how it can help not only me, but like parents and in the community too. I think that's really beneficial.
And it is certainly our hope to continue the work of the School Climate Committee. And this will be other data and evidence for them to kind of mull over and figure out why is this rate at this level and how can we address it as student body? Because the student voice makes a huge difference in terms of change. We can come up with great ideas as adults, but if the kids aren't invested, we're just going to be spinning our wheels.
Thank you. Melissa?
How much of the results will be made public? Or will all of the results be made public, or will you guys pick and choose what you're gonna release? How does that work?
We recommend that it's all transparent and public. And again, it's a reflection of and the way that we release the data is a good question. For the youth, what we will do is do what we call normative education. So if say 20% of our youth are engaging in using vaping devices, we're going to say to the youth, hey, guys, 80% of you are making really healthy choices and not vaping. Congratulations, keep up the great healthy behaviors. Parents, we want to say, hey, parents, 20% of our youth are using vape devices. We really need to be on guard and address this issue. And we also want to be working with our local businesses about making sure they're carding and those kinds of things to keep it out of the hands of our youth. But that data, how it's presented really depends on the audience. And that's not manipulating the data or anything. It's just who is your audience to alert the adults and to really show the kids that, hey, most kids are making really good healthy choices. And that's a good thing.
Bree and then Shauna.
So I believe this comes from the CDC, is that accurate?
Yes.
And they provide the high school version of this?
They provide both versions.
Okay. And do we pay for either of them? Is there a cost to us?
So there's not a cost for the high school version, there is a cost for the middle school version. We're hopeful that through administering the survey this year, that it will give access to other revenue streams to be able to fund it in subsequent years.
I know one of our school board goals recently was mental health, and I think this addresses a lot of that and gives great kind of jumping off points of where to take the future of Timberlane. So,
money well spent.
And also I think people are unaware of how early these type of activities actually occur in the community. And so I would highly suggest the middle school version as well.
Yeah. The good news is they also phrase some of the questions as when did you start using these substances? So we actually get a better pulse on, yes, it wasn't 40 they first were exposed to this substance or whatever. And that is very eye-opening. I do believe that we will see some increases around the mental health red flags, just especially after the pandemic. Anecdotally, we're seeing the anxiety playing out with our youth tremendously in our school.
Shauna.
Ginger, it says in your executive summary that the district has the option to complete paper and pencil version or a web-based version. Can you share with us so parents are aware?
Yeah, so the middle school version is strictly an electronic version. At the high school, we do have the option. So we'll make a determination as a team which would be most advantageous to administer, although I will say that the electronic version is, what I'm being told is it's significantly more secure because it's done through a secure site, and it obviously we're not handling individual surveys, so it would be recommended that we utilize the electronic version.
Mark and then.
Sorry.
No.
Just real fast, I think you can tell from the questions coming from the board that we are supportive and recognize the need and that this would be a valuable tool. Would be remiss if I didn't ask what the cost associated with the middle school was.
Sure, so the middle school survey is $4,000.
Jack, Don, did you, either one of you have a
Almost
follow-up?
thank you.
Jack?
I just saw that, I was gonna ask the question if they talked about cell phones and social media, and I see on the survey that they do. Because I think in some ways that's just as destructive as some of the substance abuse in my time. Tim, if you want, I mean, you see these stats, I hear stats that 7 out of every 10 teenage girls contemplates they're struggling, right? Is that a accurate statistic? That stuff just scares the dickens out of me.
Yeah, I think more and more we're seeing the influence of social media on kids' mental health, you know, and seeing the perfect life on their Instagrams and their whatever. And all of the touch-ups that are being done by the filters and things and the, you know, unrealistic images of what it is to be an attractive person. I mean, it definitely impacts on our youth's mental health in a very
See
significant
some of
way.
those questions on there.
I think that's an important thing to understand is I think a lot of people get caught up that this is a drug and alcohol survey. It is not. That is just one small piece of it. Social media is on there, sexual activity is on there, a lot of different things are on there to give us a kind of a whole umbrella of what our youth health looks like.
I'll say bullying also, it will give us some insight to what students have experienced bullying, to what degree, on the basis of what, you know, under what types of characteristics were they bullied. So it'll also give us some information around some of those pieces as well.
And I'm pretty confident that as we start conducting the survey, that in 2 years' time, we should be able to find other funding streams to help supplement the middle school data.
I want to thank you for sending this, giving us the access to both of them beforehand. Initially, when I saw this, there was some trepidation, but having the ability to actually review the questions and, you know, kind of work through, okay, what's the overall intentionality here? I'm at ease with it, so thank you for the work you do.
What's the communication plan to the parents so they know what's out there?
Another great question. The state has done a wonderful job of creating all kinds of social media posts, including videos and updates, just kind of dispelling a lot of the myths and rumors about this survey and the importance of the information. Not only do they have a parent-facing social media materials, they also have a student-facing social media materials that we can promote through other channels and our website and the Facebook posts and things like that.
All right, so that would be something with admin, that would be something we would get out in whatever way we do a good job getting stuff out to parents.
Yeah, we would certainly do that, and I would imagine there would be some official communication from the school level home to families around any other times that we'd be doing survey or testing, let them know what that window is gonna be, opportunities potentially to opt out, and then the purpose and rationale for why we're doing what we're doing.
We are also required 10 days prior to the administration of the survey to make sure that parents have access to actually see the survey and review it. So, you know, I envision being able to put that up on the district website, providing the link to the state website where they can view it. Also, because it's in the board packet, anybody who's able to view that can also view complete versions of both surveys, because those are the actual surveys that will be administered this year.
And when was the last year we did this? 2011?
2011.
Do you remember what the participation rate was?
It was pretty much, I mean, we had nobody opt out that I remember in the 2011 at the high school. There may have been 3 or 4 kids at the middle school that opted out from my recollection.
All. Thanks.
Don?
Yeah, back around that time, we stopped doing it. And part of the reasons were because of the difficulty of accepting at an adult level what the results were saying. And that it seemed to come back on the schools as if the problem was a school-based thing, with the causation was, you know, had to do with the kids' environment in school and the job that we were doing. And I think that stigma had something to do with it not being a high priority to continue because we were able to see the state results. And we had always been very consistent with the state results. However, I think that over time, that argument is gone by the boards. That fear, pretty much is a universal condition. People are defensive about, what's going on as far as taking ownership of the problem. And I think a big step for us would be to go in the other direction and say, regardless of what it tells us or what we think it says, compared to anybody, this gives us a chance, to address what's going on.
Good.
Can I just add to that? Sorry. I do think that as a society, through this opioid epidemic and the number of deaths that we've experienced as a community, has really shifted people's thinking about pointing a finger and blaming. I think it's an issue that people are willing to confront. The stigma has been reduced significantly about the importance of addressing the issue and getting the help. So I feel like we're in a different place as a state now, that this hopefully will not be pointing fingers, but hey, how do we join together and truly make a difference?
Any final comments? All right. Thank you so much. Good work. Good luck with the survey.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Next up is curriculum edits. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you? Number of curriculum updates. I believe all of this is executive summaries in your packet. Excuse me. The first two are second reads of curriculum that I brought not last board meeting, the board meeting before. So we have the sixth grade world language curriculum revisions. If you remember, that was simply just removing German and Latin, in essence, removing German and Latin out of those. So I don't know if you want to kind of do these separately or.
Yeah, let's get the second reads out of the way and then we
Okay.
can do the first reads.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions about, Bree, go ahead.
So the actual document that we have, this is the old version.
Yeah, if you look on.
And then the executive summary, we just have to like sub in.
Yes, yeah, there was the basically the version that you're seeing in that packet, any place where it says German and Latin, just strike that.
Yeah.
And there is a
So the
swap.
changes have not been made yet on these.
Correct,
That's
and
okay.
the swap out of the essential question is really the only changes.
Any other questions on sixth grade world language or seventh grade social studies edition?
I just have one. I sorry, I didn't ask this at the last CNA. So where do we understand and prepare children and young adults with Latin roots, especially if they're looking at anything in science or medicine or like Latin? I know nobody speaks Latin, I get it. But just it's the basis of everything. I went and got LASIK, and while I was waiting, I read every brochure about every kind of eye thing that can go wrong. And the Latin in there was crazy. I don't know a word. I'm like, okay, what's the Latin root? I'm like, I think I got this. But
It's actually, when I taught science and biology, like I spent time just going over the Latin and Greek prefixes, suffixes, and because you're right, like a lot of the science terms have their basis in that. So it is a really good foundational knowledge if you can't figure out a science word, if you can figure out the Latin, you can probably figure out the word. So it is not an official part of any of our curriculums. I believe that there are teachers who are doing little mini lessons, little mini exercises on Latin and Greek roots, whether it be in science or in English, to help kids, just as you said, as they're reading texts, kind of dissect those words and use the Greek and Latin to kind of figure out what are they reading. So there is not anything official in curriculum per se as having like a Latin lesson or Latin, as a class and as a language. But I believe that there are teachers who are doing it, and in world language, in French and Spanish classes, they probably are making connections between those Romance languages and the prefixes and suffixes found in, say, in French and Spanish, that the crossover with Latin and then in English. I don't want to speak for world language, but I mean, Sandy, you can probably
No,
verify that for me. So I think there's, like I said, there's not like an official, all kids are learning Latin, but I believe that there are these mini lessons, if you will, in the classes where it's the most pertinent. I mean, there's numerous times where I'll pass by any one of a dozen science classes between 6th grade to 12th grade, and they're dissecting those words and teaching kids, the different pieces of the words and the Latin prefix. I believe it's happening, just not in a
Structured.
It's structured, all kids are learning Latin per se.
I mean, if nobody's taking Latin, because nobody speaks Latin, and we're not, I mean, if there's nobody taking Latin and there's no reason to offer it, that would be one thing. It's just a little unfortunate for me. I don't know. Just like if you were going to nursing, if you're going to, you can make the kids take it. I think when I was in high school, they had like an AP Latin. So if you were in the AP Sciences, you could take AP Latin with it and then get that stuff. But all right, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Over time, I think word study has been really kind of put into whatever literature is being read in the English classes, as opposed to like the Sadlier series that we used to have 20 years ago or even 30 years ago, where kids had a list, they had levels of the book for each grade, and if you got through the series, you had exposure to all the roots of all the words, and there was a kind of you could trace it over time, and exposure to that, and that was the advantage of that type of a book series. There are probably others like that. That would be a type of actionable thing you could do if you felt like that was something that was holding you back in some way or robbing the kids of something that was a high priority. I think what happened is that teachers and administrators felt that the emphasis on the other pieces in the curriculum were more critical. So it happens only now, basically on teacher preference of things to do, things they see, what they can add to what the kids are learning based on what's in the stories or the books that they're being exposed to. So,
Shauna?
Speaking as a health professional at this table who also works in higher education, we recognize some of the adjustments that are made in that K through 12 curriculum related to nobody speaks Latin anymore. And so a lot of it is part of our core curricular, looking at several health professionals at this table, we recognize the adjustment in higher education at the lower level, our K through 12 partners in education. And so we make adjustments to our core curriculums there to address a lot of these same things. So that they can read, so they can read the LASIX packet that you were describing. But they're, I will say, yes, some students struggle obviously all the time, but that our K through 12 partners do a really good job in preparing students that go into those fields to at least know what resources to use to help understand that type of language. Right? Have we all looked up a few terms or two along the way?
I was just trying to survive paramedic school.
So.
All right. Any other questions about the 6th grade world language or the 7th grade social studies? And nothing changed with the social studies, correct?
Nothing changed.
Can the motion be both of them, or do you want them separately?
No, you can do both of them since they're both for second read. Just state each in the thing.
I'll make a motion to approve the second read and adoption of the 6th grade world language curriculum edits and the 7th grade social studies curriculum edits.
Thank you. Got a motion to have a second? Seconded by Bree. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. All right, cool.
Thank you. The second curriculum packet that I'm bringing to you tonight is about the pre-algebra. And again, this has gone through curriculum and assessment committee. And as we've talked about, curriculum is a living, breathing document. It's not like, teachers write it and then it just goes on the shelf. As teachers are teaching this year after year, they realize that, hey, some tweaks need to be made, and this is a good example of it where, so our pre-algebra class is taught in the 7th grade, and these are kids who are selected to go into pre-algebra at the end of their 6th grade. They go into pre-algebra in 7th grade, and then hopefully the goal is to get those kids to take Algebra 1 as 8th graders. So they're a little bit advanced than their peers. So in theory, what this pre-algebra in 7th grade class is supposed to get is all of the skills and content that they would have learned going 7th grade math and then 8th grade math. And there's obviously overlap between those two. And so when the curriculum was originally written, those two curriculum pieces were overlapped and written, and as the teachers have been teaching it for a number of years, they've realized that there's a couple places where there's been needed to make some tweaks and some adjustments, and actually like some things that we thought were in there maybe weren't in there as articulated as they needed to be, and then just combining some of the curriculum documents to ensure that everything that was supposed to be in 7th grade and everything that was supposed to be in 8th grade is combined into this pre-algebra class for 7th graders. So it's really, there's nothing really just going away. It's really just making sure that everything that was in there is in fact in there in the written curriculum, and the written curriculum is then the enacted curriculum.
What happens to students that aren't picked for pre-algebra?
So those students who are not in pre-algebra, they go into 7th grade math. They go into 8th grade math, and then they would take Algebra 1 as 9th graders. Some of those kids, if they, maybe they weren't selected for pre-algebra at the end of 6th grade, and during 7th grade, they really excelled. And they get driven, and they want to work with some teachers. They prove that then they can get bumped up to 8th grade Algebra 1. There is a pathway for them at that point. But the goal is that, all kids are getting through Algebra 2 by the time they're juniors. I should say all kids are getting through Algebra 2, hopefully by the time they're graduating. Kids take different paths there. Some kids take a slower path and a more varied path. Some kids take what would be considered an accelerated path and are getting Algebra 2 by the time they're sophomores. So really this is it's one of the many pathways that kids are just getting their math credits done.
Could I just add to the entry into pre-algebra is based on multiple data points. So it's not just teacher selection. I think you can handle it. It's based on their academic performance on different measures in mathematics. So.
Okay. Mark.
One of the bullets here, students will demonstrate the ability to speak purposefully and effectively by strategically making decisions about content, language use, and discourse style.
So that is you said speaking. So all of our curriculum documents in grades 6 through 12 have a reading, writing, and speaking competency. So whether it's PE, English, science, social studies, it doesn't matter. So
I get it with those subjects. How would it apply here? I mean, can you give me an example?
So a really good example I think in math would be a student simply needing to explain how they got to an answer. And it could be as simple as, a teacher asks a class to solve a problem. Okay, now, you and the person sitting at your table, you both solve the problem. Turn, Mark, to Shauna and explain to Shauna how you solve that problem.
Okay, cool.
And the teacher just walks around and listens, and that's simply, it could be as easy as that.
Yep. It was a language use and discourse style.
Yeah,
I'm like.
Surprised you didn't understand that, Mark.
I was explaining it for you, Jack.
You just proved your competency in that speaking. Good job.
Aw. You want a gold star?
No, that's good
Great,
enough.
go ahead.
So just to clarify, this document is already changed and the orange highlight are the changes.
Yes, I believe the orange highlights are the ones that are showing where the changes are, correct? Yes.
Any other questions for the pre-algebra curriculum first read?
Okay. They go together, right? Did you have a question?
I do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
I didn't see your hand, sorry, Shauna.
No, I didn't raise it, but I didn't realize you were gonna be making a motion.
Oh,
so
no,
I want to
go.
speak to
I
before.
gave you a chance.
Is it,
Go.
Is it possible to fast track this? If there's no feedback from the board that's gonna go back to CNA, are you just simply gonna bring it back to the board again, since we haven't had any?
I mean, the way that we've always done this with our curriculum documents is it's 2 reads at curriculum and assessment and 2 reads at the board. I guess it's really just the will of the board, how you wanna handle it.
There's language in policy that governs 2 reads. You always have the opportunity to waive the second read as a board, but that's why we
That's
want
what
it.
it Thank you. I didn't know if you wanted to do that.
Is everyone comfortable with that? I can say from being on curriculum and assessment and having gone through this already twice.
Feels very vetted.
It is, and the fact that, I say it every time, I'm gonna say it again, we have teachers that are looking at these curriculum documents all the time, and our curriculum coordinators are looking at this stuff all the time, and when they see things that need to be tweaked, they're gonna bring it to the curriculum assessment committee, and we'll all talk about it, and then we bring it here, so it's truly vetted before it ever comes here, but, and not to, say that you guys don't have a say in it or anything, but there's a lot of work that goes to it. Jack is
I think the only time a second read is necessary to come back at at another meeting, if someone has a question that needs to be answered. If we're all comfortable with it on the first read and everything that we've heard, I just think we should approve the first and second read because there are gonna be no changes. I mean, I hate to be logical about it.
So it sounds like the will of the board is to go ahead and move this to first and second read tonight.
Yes.
All right, go for it.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve for first, second read and adoption of the pre-algebra curriculum edits and the grade 7 math curriculum edits. What?
8th grade mandate.
Oh, and eighth grade curriculum, I'm sorry, and 8th grade curriculum
All right,
edits.
so the motion is to move for a first and second read of the pre-algebra curriculum, the 7th grade math and the 8th grade math curriculum. Correct.
And adoption.
And
yes.
adoption. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Motion made by Kim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, I know.
Let's just approve it.
Right.
I know.
I shouldn't just say it.
Student Chromebook RFP. Hello, hello.
Good morning, good evening, sorry. Long day.
Just testing everybody.
It's morning somewhere.
I know
Go.
it's skating, guys.
All right, what you got for us?
So tonight I am asking for board approval on another RFP for student Chromebooks. This purchase is for our yearly purchase of Chromebooks for next year's 6th and 9th graders. 6th graders get these Chromebooks for their middle school career, turning them at the end of 8th grade. 9th graders get new Chromebooks and use them for their high school career. We give them to them the end of 5th and 8th grade respectively, before they go to summer so they can hit the ground running next year. We also, I didn't put it in the executive summary, but we also use these Chromebooks for SAT testing. So we can set up the testing beforehand with brand new Chromebooks, all fully charged. Just makes for a much more consistent, better experience for the testing. We put this on our website and emailed to vendors on December 18th, and the deadline was January 15th. We got 17 vendors to submit bids, which I've been really happy about how many bids we've been getting. Recommending, it was Archangel, yep, again, who won the last one. That was the lowest qualifying bid. You'll find one bid on this which is lower, but they did not bid what we asked for, and they didn't include the Chrome licenses, which we require. So recommending Archangel for $143,704 for 550 Chromebooks and 550 licenses. And that spans both, that covers both grades.
Jack, did you have a question? And then Paul.
Just a comment, I was about to say how many bidders we got and how the RFP process worked really great here. And I mean, the next low bid was only a couple $100 away, if I'm looking at that number right?
The next qualifying one was, yeah, you're right. It was about
CDWG.
$400.
I mean, yeah, those were pretty high numbers. You'd hate to come in second place like that, right? But thank you for all the hard work.
Paul?
Just as a refresher, because we did this with kindergarten recently, right? How long, what's the license? Is it 6 years?
Yeah, Google, it's a good question. Google licenses are good for 6 years.
Okay.
So it's part of the reason why we buy them in batches, like for the middle school, obviously 3 years of middle school, 4 years of high school, that's 7 years. At some point, we need to get them another Chromebook with a new license, and we decided, ninth grade would be a logical point to do that.
And this is the same vendor as the kindergarten?
It is, yeah, our change was the same, not the same Chromebook, but the same distributor.
Yep, okay.
I know we talked about this when we did the kindergarten ones, but I don't remember what the answer was. What happens to the Chromebooks that we are taking out of service?
Yep, so the 8th grade ones, we collect those. They would be 3 years old, 3 years of use. We'll clean them up, fix any parts with them. We have a great Tiger techs, which is the middle school techs, students that will work on these. We'll redistribute them in certain locations of the district, elementary, maybe paraprofessionals or certain staff groups will get them as well.
Board members.
Yes.
Bree and then Jack.
Would it be possible to set up like an exchange with the community for any of those if they needed home access, or where it's not attached to our server anymore, but where they could potentially
Yeah, there's a whole, there's actually a policy on that, where we can, we redistribute them through the district, the ones that actually, are in good shape and everything. We could look at some sort of community distribution as well for the ones that, what I don't wanna give the community is bad equipment, right? If they've been, sometimes we get them back and they're not in great shape. I don't think we wanna be.
Would you say sometimes, or would you say they get beaten up pretty badly over the course of 3 middle school years?
Yeah, middle school is in every district, middle school.
Just one.
Hard shooters.
Are you going out on a limb there, Doug?
Are you good, Bree? Okay. Jack?
So this may be a question for Sandy or Justin or you, Ken. So I'm sure there were people out there sitting in the audience saying, why do all these kids have all these computers? Because when I went to school, I learned how to handwrite and we didn't do this. And, what are the advantages? I kind of know what the answer is, but explain to us the advantages of making this. It's a big investment, right? So can someone?
Well, I think from my perspective, it's just the way the world works now. For better or worse, the genie's out of the bottle and you go to a job now, they don't give you like a pen, pad of paper and a pen. They give you a laptop, a Chromebook or whatever. All the work above us, higher ed, is all done. I have kids in college, so I know it's all online, it's all collaborative. It's just the way of the world now.
I could have bought apples.
Again, for better or worse, and I'm a tech director and I get that that's not always the best thing.
I could have bought Apple stock in, I think it was 96 for $1.25 a share, and I said a fad. Computers are a fad. It's gonna come and go. So yeah, I kind of missed the boat on that one.
All right. Bree?
just a quick question, do we ever use paper and pen anymore? Do we handwrite
Yes.
things?
Yes,
Well, no,
my kids
I-
do.
I've
Oh, yeah.
I've had students come to college that say I can't really write well because I type everything. It scares me, so just making sure that
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still a
Oh, yes.
necessary skill
Yes.
that we use.
There's a state law connected to it at the elementary level.
Just the
Instruction
elementary.
for handwriting, yeah.
I mean, they're learning cursive in elementary. My kid comes home with cursive sheets every day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Still? Yeah,
Nice.
they're doing cursive. He's in 3rd grade. Yeah.
Nice. All right, any other questions?
Now, when are we starting kindergarten AI instruction?
Dude, no.
That's working on the curriculum right now.
Having a good meeting.
Okay, so we've had a lot of good discussion, it seems like. Moving on, go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to make a motion to approve entering into contract with Archangel for 550 student Chromebooks.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded by Kim.
Should the amount be in there?
$143,704.
Thank you.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Policies. Shauna, is it you or Sandy?
I'll start, Sandy can
Chime
jump in.
Alright.
So the first policy that we're bringing forward tonight for a first read is policy JLC, which is student health services. and in summary, this particular policy, it does have a few other related policies, but this is the main policy that essentially dictates about health services in the district, health plans for students, and our school nurse student roles. They have had a recent requirement change from DOE about their certification and certain title requirements. So in alignment with those recent changes at the DOE level, policy committee looked at this. We sent it out to our lead nurse and to Ginger for their feedback and got it. And so that is the version of the revisions that you see here that are presented to you for first read.
Alyssa and then Kim.
What is the certification process for the nurses through the DOE?
I don't know.
I was gonna ask the
can't
same
answer that
thing, like,
question.
so will you
Um,
have?
They know through their licensing organization. So like if you wanted to become a school nurse, do they support you here if you're interested in becoming a school nurse and telling you what the process is? Yes, but it's not necessarily required to be part of the policy. So that's why it's not in here.
Okay. But they are required to have that certification now?
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, the reason why I asked that is like, what's the time frame? So like, if someone applies and doesn't have that certification, what is the certification requiring? Like, what kind
I
of
was
time
gonna
frame
say
are they
Ginger
looking
can answer that
at?
question for information purposes, but there's a reason why it's not in the policy because it will probably change. Because
Yeah.
it's a state licensing requirement, so.
So we found that the certification process for school nurses has been pretty quick, moving through the process. They fill out an application and then process it through credentialing, much like our teachers do. There are some requirements that they should have 3 years of pediatric experience, a BSN. You know, those are some components that are required for the DOE certification. And, but we found, because we've hired some nurses recently for the district, that probably within inside of a month, people are able to get their credentials.
So they can start before getting that?
No, we need the
Or-
credential before they can start, but oftentimes if we have people moving through the application process, we'll have them go ahead and start the application with the DOE, so they tend to line up with a date of hire.
Did you say that one of the requirements was 3 years of peds?
That is a requirement. I will say, because of the shortage of school nurses across the district, the DOE has been looking at that with some discretion and using their best judgment.
Okay,
A lot
that's
of
where I was
times
going.
what'll happen is that our nurses will go back to their prior employment sites and get letters with regard to the types of patients that they worked with over the years, and they will take all of that into consideration. Pediatrics is obviously preferred, but they will look at a range of experience.
So we would not be able to hire somebody with 2 years' experience in the field because they'd be, wow,
That's correct.
ouch.
You don't want any of yours doing that, don't worry. It's a good requirement. Just saying.
Especially in our elementary schools where they're standalone. I mean, our nurses have a tremendous network with one another, you know, to be able to connect and ask questions and things of that nature. But if you're standalone in a building, I think having that additional year of experience is important.
Understood.
Any more questions about the first read policy JLC? Thank you. Someone want to make a motion to accept this policy for first read?
And I would say if there's no recommended feedback to bring back to policy committee, that we could potentially move this through the process unless there's any feedback you would want, because it is a requirement for us to have these updates in our policy due to the changes at the DOE level.
Makes sense.
Anybody have any questions about this policy that they want to go back to policy committee, or any other questions? Are you all good with this being a first and second read?
Yes.
All right, who wants to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy JLC, student health services, for first, second read and adoption.
Motion made by Shauna, do I have a second? Second by Mark, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained. All right, we got 2 for second read / adoption. Looks like.
So the next policy for second read and adoption presented to the board tonight is EBCA, which is Crisis Prevention and Emergency Response Plans. The board had given us some feedback to take back to policy committee, and we were able to answer questions regarding it, but felt that some of the logistics related to it were not necessarily appropriate to put in the policy. They might have been more procedurally related. And also some of the, if I'm recalling correctly, Sandy, help me with this one. Some of the information that would be required for crisis prevention and emergency response plans should not be publicized, and all of our policies are publicized. So to safeguard that information, we vetted with
Right.
some of our folks at NHSBA that those types of things should not be in the policy.
Yes. And in addition to that, sometimes in many of our policies, if there's any sort of approval or authorization required, sometimes it'll say superintendent or designee, principal or designee. And that was one of the questions that was put forward to policy committee. And specifically with regard to the emergency operations plan. And we talked about how that process is very exclusive and it is only the principal and then the superintendent, not a designee, who has access to those platforms to be able to upload and give approval to those plans. So we chose purposefully to not include that language. So that was some of our discussion, so.
And this is not a policy that we currently have, so we're using the NHSBA sample policy language to adopt, or recommending that we use that to adopt.
One of the things that's included in there, which I would discuss as an important piece to make sure that all employees see is the New Hampshire Code of Conduct, as I think it becomes a pretty safe gauge of what's acceptable for professional behavior in schools. And it is something that if I were a personnel person, I would certainly bring out to discuss a situation that somebody might find themselves in, as this is the
Well, John, that's the next policy,
expectation.
I think.
Yeah, staff conduct.
I'm just saying.
And, oh, I didn't present that one yet. That's why I'm confused. I'm so sorry.
But it was a perfect transition
Yes, it was.
to the next one.
It's a
I'm
big-
sorry, Don, keep going. This,
Yes.
Dawn is referring to GBEB, which is the staff conduct policy, which is also coming back to the board for a second read. So I'm gonna let Dawn keep going, because, thank you. Appreciate you.
Pretty much was done there. I had to end that. Hello.
Sorry. It is about staff conduct and policies related to conduct. Also something that policy committee did discuss was, being aware of what's required of you. There was good discussion with Fran through HR about some procedural pieces that her team can put into place to make sure that that information is readily available and addressed on an annual basis for all staff and teachers and employees within the district.
And the language that was added that you'll see in red underlined reflects current practices. So this is not something new that we would be adopting. This is something that's already happening. So all district employees upon hire receive notification of the code of conduct, the code of ethics that Dawn was speaking to, along with where and how to access all school board policies. And then when contracts are issued or letters of agreement, depending on the employee, and whether or not they're in a collective bargaining unit or non-affiliated, those links are also included in the communication that's sent to them should they accept the terms of employment for renewal. So it's a practice that's currently in place, so we felt fine adding that language just to indicate what we currently do.
Any questions on these two policies?
There's one on
Yeah, go ahead.
PDCA, and I think you had mentioned something about what designee means in these circumstances, but I made the wording bother me. But the emergency operations plan, and it says that the principal or their designee shall annually review their site specific, like, that, I don't know. I wouldn't-
So the review, there is, right, so one, I think, copy readily available, and there's limited access. So in the case where we had a principal on leave or something like that, we might appoint someone to fill in, but really access to be able to review those plans is limited to, the superintendent has a login to review those and the principals as well.
Right, so the designee would be, that's almost like legalese for the person that's being the
Yes.
principal at the time.
Yeah.
Yes, acting in that person's stead.
It's not just the principal doesn't review it, so they're letting somebody
Yeah,
else
yeah,
do
you
it.
do
It's
it.
not that. It's not that.
Right, good.
Any other questions about these two policies? Someone want to make a motion for second reading adoption?
So moved.
Jack made the motion for second reading adoption of policy EBCA and policy GBEB. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Leslie.
Just afraid else I'm gonna get one.
It's like, no, we kind of need to. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. All right, cool. Next, administrators report.
Awesome. Bear with me for a second when we get set up here. You give those to the two board members there, and there's a packet coming around to the board. Dean's going to help me with some technology pieces here in a second.
Okay.
But I've got 5 kind of big buckets to kind of talk through tonight. And then a cool experience to describe that's going to be happening on March 5th for 5th graders here at the main campus. But want to take an opportunity tonight to kind of talk out those 5 buckets. The PDF would be great. Thank you. Before I get to the screen, and people at home can watch that on the screen, and then you folks can follow along either on the screen there or in your packet. The first item that I want to talk through doesn't have anything to do with this type of paperwork or these handouts, so you don't need to look at the packet or your screens. But it has to do with the Center for School Climate and Learning. If you remember that Dr. Preble was here in November, and he presented with a Lombard family who had their 3 children here with them. I think we all had an opportunity to kind of hear of their individual experiences that evening. The next step that we've talked about with the Lombard family and with the middle school administrators is we're going to use that public presentation that they did, which constituted about 45 or 50 minutes. We're going to work with some students. We're going to edit that footage, and we're going to create a workable video that we can use for a lot of different purposes. One of which could be training staff along the entryway. Some of it could be used for some remediation with students that are engaging in those behaviors as a learning tool. But it's a way to kind of take that family story with their permission and highlight it and create an educational tool around that. So we hope to be bringing that back to the board to show you what that looks like. And we're really excited about that work. You heard Mr. Lena refer to the School Culture and Climate Committee. There we go. I know that you're involved in that as well. The second update there is that we've also worked with New England College through the help of Dr. Preble, and we're offering a graduate course to the staff here at the secondary level at a very reduced tuition rate of $425 a graduate credit hour. It's School and Society. It'll be taking place during the spring semester of the 2025 school year, and we're looking to actively get staff signed up for that class, and it's an extension of some of that work that's happening with those student and staff teams in the school. So another educational experience for staff to build that knowledge base outside of the school setting. So two cool opportunities.
Is that an online course?
It will be an online course, yes, with some in-person components.
Thanks.
All right, let's get to the packet. So the first thing you've got there, I want to talk a little bit about and show the board and the public some actuals with regard to revenue and expenses. You've got really 2 major tables out in front of you. On the left-hand side is simply just the general fund. And on the right-hand side, you can think about it as the total package. So the general fund, food services, grants, and the PAC, that's the total school district. I'm going to spend my time over on the right-hand side of this document because it is comprehensive of our incredible district. We looked at a certain set of dates from July 1 in fiscal 25, and we looked at that same set of dates for actuals from fiscal 24. Just kind of get a sense of where are we this year. The top section is revenue pieces, and the bottom section are expense pieces, and I'll talk through each one of those. Starting at the top with apportionment, again, this is revenue that we'd be taking in through taxpayer dollars and also through the state adequacy. You can see there in terms of comparing this fiscal year to last fiscal year, we've taken in so far in that same time frame $500,000 less dollars in apportionment revenue. If you move to other revenue, so this is grants and other tuition-based revenue, we have also taken in less than $500,000 of what we did that same time in the previous fiscal year, for a total of about $1 million in revenue that we have not collected at that same time period when compared to last year. Okay. Moving to expenses, and these are the last 4 columns there. The first one is the total expenses. So we outpaced ourselves with that same time period from this year to last year by $3.3 million. That is kind of divided up into a few different categories. You can look at salaries, which we've expended about $1 million more from July to December this year than last year. Benefits, we've expended about $1.5 million more over that same time period. And just the general operations of the school district, about $900,000. So in total, $3.3 million more of expenses from July through December, and $1 million less revenue, and kind of gives us a good dipstick where we are. I've talked with the chair and vice chair. We're going to look to kind of be reporting these out regularly from now moving forward, as this dipstick will kind of get finer and we'll get a better idea of kind of where we are come June and such. But we'll keep an updated portion of the board month by month here as we move forward. Questions about this piece, about revenue, expenses, looking at the 2 fiscal years?
So just for clarification, between 2024 and 2025, we've spent more than $3 million than between the two, and then we've also taken in $1 million less. Correct.
Correct, from July 1 to December 31.
Okay. Bree, go ahead.
And just to clarify, this is not an accurate depiction of our accounts. This is just the difference of money flow.
It's the difference from the actuals this year versus the actuals
Like
last
what's
year.
sitting in the bank account
Nope,
at any one
nope.
time.
Nothing like that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, I appreciate it. Page 2,
That's awesome. Thank
here, you're welcome. The next big bucket to talk through is positions. Got me thinking when we had the public hearing, we had a lot of conversations about open and vacant positions in the district over the course of this year. We reported out, and we've been consistently reporting out there. We have close to about 60 open and vacant positions in the school district. So let's talk about precise numbers, and let me unpack that number a little bit more so we have an understanding of what it means. Every position you see listed here is an open and vacant position, meaning that it's in the budget and there's no human being occupying that position right now. 66 of them. You can see that highlighted in yellow. Of that 66, and many people know that my eyes are failing,
It's okay.
and I told somebody I was going to get glasses, and I haven't done that yet.
You want these readers?
So, of those 66, the lines in blue, so that is our admin, LEA over at the high school. It's our director of facilities, and it's the HVAC skilled maintenance position. Those 3 positions have either been filled or they're in the recommendation process for hire. So I'm going to be looking to close those positions very soon. They will come off this list. Every position you see listed in red, these were the positions that the school board approved to transfer funds from salaries to contracted services. There are 40 of those positions. You made that vote on December 19th of 2024.
Say that again? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Nope, those 40 positions in red are the positions that you have previously voted to move the salary from those positions into contracted services.
Now, is my understanding of that is that those have been moved over, but in actuality, it will only pay for a third, roughly, of the positions that are unfilled, that go unfilled, because we've kind of been working with the understanding that when we have to do contract services, we pay 2/3 more for that position.
2 to 3. We'll typically pay 2 to 3 times more for the contracted positions.
Okay.
So I think what Jack's asking is that for every one contract, it's not just one position, it's
No.
multiple positions for
Correct.
one
So-
service.
It's not a 1-to-1 correlation.
If you took all those in pink,
Yep.
we're basically really only filling a third of them. How many?
They are funding 20 to 30, they're
How
funding
many-
about 20
how many are in
positions.
pink?
40.
40. So really, that's a third of 40, basically 12.
They're helping to fund contracted service providers in the support staff personnel that were required to deliver services to those schools, those kids in those schools.
So why don't, I'm just trying to understand this, and because there's a lot of confusion on this out there in TV land. Why do we have all of this if that number is just in contract labor?
Because it would be fiscally advantageous for the district to hire these people. So the
But if the
position,
nu- so if the numbers if the money is actually in the contract labor line, right?
it is now because you moved it
It
there.
is now, and these positions remain.
The positions
Open.
remain open and vacant, they just don't have the salary backing behind them.
I'm just wondering if there's a better way to describe that to the public, because I kind of get it. I mean, well, I do get it, but I just, it's
Yeah, I
it's a
think
little
this-
convoluted.
I think this chart is a great piece to use with the public, because when we get to the bottom line here, you'll see that there are not 66 positions that are currently funded holding money. There's a great fewer positions than that.
I think what Jack is saying is that, is there a way to define this other than call it paraeducator? To say this is either paraeducator or contracted services.
That'd be living in two lines at once.
Well, I'm just saying, it's, reality is that it is two lines at once, and it's not understood. And, you know, people think we have a surplus coming out that's much larger than it's gonna be, or predict there'll be a greater surplus.
This,
When in actuality, it's just actually worse because you're spending more for less.
Mhm.
And we're trapped in that somehow. But either it has to be explained, because we're going to hear in negative feedback about our management of our resources.
yep, and I'm hoping that this tool that you have in front of you allows the
No,
board
I'd
to
like
talk.
This
I like
is
the
this
tool.
is
I do
this
like
is
the
the
tool.
best description so far. But my next question is, and I went back,
Could we wait and let him get through the whole chart, and then if there's other questions that we can ask, because he's still got to represent on this?
bombs away,
Is that okay? All right.
bombs away.
Might answer your question.
Started with 66, subtract 3, subtract 40. The ones in green are posted positions. So we're actively seeking for these personnel now. You'll notice that a majority of those positions are in the facilities department. 6 of the beige positions there are positions that exist in our school district, but they're grant funded. So they are not taxpayer funded.
Okay.
And the 3 left in white are open and vacant. And if you'll notice, there's a speech and language pathologist, a psychologist, and a paraeducator, those very same positions that we are continuing the contract for that are sitting there that we may need to draw on as the year moves on. So if you do the math, there are not 66 positions sitting in the budget bloated with money. 3 of them are in the hiring process and will be filled shortly. 40 of them, the salaries have already been cleared and move over to contracted services. 6 of them are grant funded, leaving you for a total of 17 positions that are open and vacant that we're searching for,
To have money in them.
that have money in them. 3.
And how many positions roughly do we have in the entire district?
I think the last time that we counted, what is it, a W-9? We issued about 900 of them last year. We've got about
Pretty good percentage
600,
that
a little north of 600 full-time.
I think Maria actually
She
just
did.
sent
She
that
sent it
to
to me.
us.
If I may,
Yeah.
the W-2
Yeah.
report, 924 W-2s just went out today, actually.
Dawn and then Alyssa.
Just a question of, with the ones that are in pink or
You did raise
whatever,
your hand again.
those paraeducator pieces, that's salary, not benefits and salary?
Salary only,
Right?
and
So
it-
if you put those two together, so you do that, so
well, remember how we budget for the benefit pieces of it is using what the person had it in the last piece of the position. Right now, we're only moving salary here, and these positions are not, there's no humans and they're drawing any benefits on them right now.
Alyssa and then Jack.
These 40 positions that are in the red, these numbers that are on here, are these the contracted wages that they're getting for this
Nope.
position, or is this?
This was the salary line approved through the budget committee
Okay.
and the voting body in the last voting cycle.
Would it be helpful if we're gonna use this as an education tool for the public to also put in what we're actually paying for those positions through the contracted services? To show like, this is what we could be paying if we were able to hire it. through our own means, but this is what we're actually paying for it. I don't know if that would be useful
It'd be
information.
very easy for us to report out the actuals where we are with contracted services. And to remind the board, as an educational tool, those are reported out in 3 different numbers. One is for speech and language pathologists only, one is for psychologists only, and the last is a catch-all for the paraprofessionals and anyone else who's contracted. So there are actually 3 contracted service lines.
Mark and then Jack.
Just to
because he's
tag
adding.
on to what you were saying, Alyssa, so looking at the average salary for the para, it's about 20,000. And to say, okay, these 3 lines are funding one para that we're outsourcing for 60,000. That's what you're saying, right? To
Yeah.
highlight it that way.
Correct.
Jack and then Kim.
So as I went back into a lot of school board meetings dating back very far back, the question came up about all these open positions. And one of the things that was said in a prior board was that the positions have to be here because they're a requirement for the state. So how many of these are actually required by the state so we are in compliance? In other words, the general consensus out there is that this is excessive. And I wanna know what makes, do 10 positions make us compliant, or do we need all of these? And the other argument out there is we've been living without them. So I think those are things that we need to address. Everybody wants a perfect world. If we need to keep these positions open so we are in compliance, I get it. I mean, we had this discussion last year about, we know that we were gonna fill half of the open positions, so why are we funding all of them? Now, we understand contract labor a lot better, and we understand there's an additional 2/3. We do transfers all the time. So it would be good to understand all of that on the front end. Cause I did go back and watch meetings and watch every board kind of struggle with this to a certain extent.
Makes me think about a couple things, Jack. First is that the state doesn't require that we have positions. The state holds us accountable for the IEP team decisions and the programs and services that we're committing ourselves to. That is what they're requiring of us. Our obligation is to deliver the services that the teams are saying needs to get delivered to meet those student needs in those programs. So it's not the positions that they're requiring us, it's the service that these positions.
A standard.
A service.
It's
Whether the
Kim-
child needs
Kim
speech and
again.
language work, or whether the child needs to see an occupational therapist, or whether the child needs to see a psychologist to go through a battery of assessments to determine eligibility. All of those things are services that the personnel delivers to the student or to the team for information. So when a team decides that's what that student needs, that is our legal contractual relationship there, that we then are obligated to go and find the personnel to deliver those services.
I'm asking this question kind of twofold. Are we providing that level of service to those students at this point in time?
The answer is yes.
But yet, there seems to be a disconnect for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Kim and then
interpret.
Dawn.
Actually, my question has to do more with the 924.
Okay,
than
so
it
you
does
could,
with that, so
so you
I'll
good holding
hold.
off for a
Yeah,
second,
yeah,
alright,
yeah.
Mark and then Dawn.
I think I may be able to clarify, allow me to. So if there are 40 open para positions, do we actually need to fill in 40 seats with paras? I think the answer is no. We're providing services now with the funding that we have set aside for those 40 because it's costing us a lot more. If all of a sudden we had 20 or 30 paras come in and say, I want to work at Timberlane, we could fill those spots, and with the remaining 10, wipe them out. We don't need them. They're off the books. Is that
I
correct?
think that is a conceptual, yes.
That was, I think we talked about this a couple meetings ago where I said, put the money in contractual services, and then as we get people, backfill, and if I remember correctly, is a penalty with some of the.
It's not so much a penalty. I would just want you folks to think about, once you eliminate the position, you're forcing the hand to go to contracted services, and that should not be the first place we look. The first place we look should be to hire our own people.
That's kind of where I was, trying to speak to, is that there's a risk in not providing enough of the paraprofessional positions. And I'm not saying there has to be 40, or 50, a particular number, but if you're off and you don't have anything to draw on to pay for the outside services, now you're risking compliance issues.
What kind of penalty do we get if we're not in compliance with the state?
All kinds of different corrective actions. I think the real cost is that the student in the end is not getting what they need to get. And then there's also kinds of litigation and liability it opens the district to, whether it's mediations or whether it's due process and those come with real costs.
I mean, we wanna
financial
be
costs.
compliant, we wanna give the level of service, we just wanna make sure that we're walking that line from a fiscal standpoint with the service standpoint. And I think that's the general concern out there.
Just very quickly, so I will tell you that having worked in a district that was not compliant, and if we go to due process with a family because we're not providing a free and appropriate public education to that child and they're not getting their services, not only do we pay for our attorney for that process, we pay for their attorney and we're gonna lose. It's a very black and white issue. You don't provide services to a student with a disability, you're gonna lose in the due process area, and it's extremely costly. It can cost us $150,000 to come to a resolution with a family and have what's it called? Not remediation, but remediation. It can, absolutely. So it is it's part of the IDEA, the federal law. And our IEP teams are highly trained and take these decisions very, very seriously, knowing all of the ramifications, whether it is not wanting to deny a child what they need in order to make progress or not giving away the store. It's all a part of the picture.
Chris, is there an audit annually of our ability to, meet the needs of all the students?
Interestingly enough, if I may, Madam Chair, I am reviewing, we are up for audit next year. They'll come in and do a random check of IEPs, among other processes. So yes.
In the past, I can remember having it been reported at board meetings how we did in that situation, and we were doing very well each year while still basically doing the same thing, maybe not to the degree we have to now. But so I just think there are a lot of eyes on the degree that we're making sure we take care of kids' needs.
To quote our superintendent, the students that are in front of us today have many more needs than the students that came before us 20 years ago for a variety of reasons.
Kim?
I just wanna make sure everyone's good with that information before I shift over to the 924 number. And I don't even know if you guys are gonna be able to answer this question, but so there is a topic out there about us having 924 employees being a lot more than it has in the past. And so it's my understanding that there's a law that says that if you're, for example, if you teach trumpet lessons, like after school for, 3 days a week or whatever, and you're getting paid through the district, that the law now says that you have to be considered a district employee.
I may be able to add some clarification to that.
Please, yeah.
So there have been a number of questions. Hey, how many people is Timberlane employing? Some folks in the public are saying, are the numbers going up or the students are going down? So there have been some requests, perhaps even right to know requests, saying how many employees we have to compare over the years. And my understanding is within the last handful of years, the department, DES, I think it was.
I think it's the IRS.
New Hampshire IRS will say, changed how we have to address some of the employees. So I know for contractual services, if we contract with, say, speech pathologist who's part of an organization, that's fine, that doesn't count. But if they're independently contracted through us, they're not our employee, but independently contracted through us, they now become an employee. Or somebody giving private, saxophone lessons at the high school for years past, we just kind of wrote them a check, but now we have to count them as an employee. I think that's where you're going with
That's
that.
exactly right, yes.
Why don't we, on our end, spend some time and bring back a staff trend report for you folks?
That'd be great.
And also look into get some clarification or some clarity around whatever potential change in law and what implications it has for who we classify as employees.
That would be good because there's a lot of information out there and it contradicts each other.
Yeah.
And people tend to look at the negative and, let's see where the real numbers lie. That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else with this chart?
Not with that one, unless there's other questions about
Any other
positions.
questions about this? Thank you for that.
This is awesome.
Third one down the road here. Maybe a little less time on this, I'm not so sure.
Sorry.
Dr. Martin may have some input here as well, but I thought it was important just to touch on facilities in a bit. I feel like I haven't spoken a whole lot about it in recent meetings.
Before Justin gets into it, let's hold all questions until he's done presenting.
And kind of get back on track. So I wanted to present to you that top table, and really what that represents is just this fiscal year, kind of the unanticipated facility challenges that we've had at different buildings. There's been 19 of them as of, Dr. Martin giving me this data maybe even a month ago. So you can kind of see some of the things that have happened at the high school there, over at the middle school. Atkinson Academy had some really difficult work with heating pumps and boilers over at Pollard. Their gym rooftop unit, and they've had a hot water tank that's been kind of on the fritz. A lot of things happening at Sandown North, some essential boiler issues, some sewage and some pumping that needed to happen over there in terms of those types of tanks, and then also over at Danville. So, again, across the district, things that we were not planning for that we've addressed and we've either mitigated or fixed. These are just the things that kind of pop up the year that we need to be mindful of and consider. And second, and not connected to that, but connected to facilities, this board just approved the Phase 3 project list. I wanted to give you folks an indication that EEI is developing that contract for us to review, and we'll certainly bring it back to you here. But in addition to Phase 1, 2, and potentially 3, these are the leftover or the remaining projects on the $25 million lease list. This is the list that continues to be in front of the facilities committee, and I did my best to ballpark the dollar appropriations that are kind of attached to each of those projects as we kind of look out forward. So, wanted to entertain any thoughts or questions or comments about some of the ongoing facility challenges, or also what's remaining on the long portion of the lease.
All of these unexpected, I know that number is out there, but do you have an idea of what this top chart, what that dollar figure was of all the unexpected?
Oh, boy, we would have to pull invoices for you on that. I mean, I can tell you, if you want to scroll back up, please, thank you, Ken. You can look at like freezer failures, the replacement of the mini split in the IT room. These are the major ones. These are not a broken window or most of these are when I collected this data, if I remember correctly, we were looking at things that were more than $2,000 to replace, repair. So, I mean, we can get you that number, but it will be time consuming. We can get it for you though. And remember, I think it's also illustrative to say, this is just like probably till the end of December. I think
Right, this is only half a year.
I spent some time with the guys at a meeting, and this comes right out of our guys that do this work or that call to have the contractors come in because we can't do the work.
Did I cut you off again, Don?
No, I just raised my hand the same time you did.
Okay.
Mark and then Don.
I think it maybe not line by line everything, but I think it would be very important and visually impactful if we could have this for deliberative when we're talking about cutting out different funds, proposals to cut out, capital improvement funds, et cetera. That will be brought up. And we need to be able to rightfully justify this is where these monies have been historically. We could not have predicted the boiler. We could not have predicted the fire in Sandown. We did not predict it. These are things, which of these things would you have wanted us not to do? And so again, not line by line, but if we can illustrate the work that is being done that's invisible, and it's not just this pot of gold that we're sitting on from year to year, I think that would be helpful.
There are things here that would have shut us down.
And that's it.
I mean, we were able to have school at Sandown North because we were pumping storage, 4,800 gallons of it every other day, until the sewer pumps were replaced. Not to mention, if we look at emergency, the things that are compliance issues with fire inspections and health inspections and things. We just had a health inspection at Danville, and those items were on, many of those were on there, and there are smaller items. We also had a health inspection at Pollard, and I'm not sure what that's gonna cost for us to take care of some of those issues, so. We will give you some numbers.
Yeah, just, I'm not surprised at all that we've had this level of unanticipated things to do. It seems to be state when you have a bunch of aging buildings, you know, that you are anticipating some things and you're going to bat for the most important of those, but in no way are we trying to be putting every single thing that we want to be doing on the list of things that we're prioritizing for next year. So I look at this and say, I've had high school years that seem to have as much as this whole district list is this year. Maybe we're making some progress. I'm not alarmed by a couple $100,000 worth of unanticipated things district-wide over the course of the half a year, or, you know, or double that over the course of a year, because these are old buildings.
Jack?
Yeah, the spin typically is if there's anything left unexpended in those lines, it's because we don't need the money. And what I would say is, and I said this all last year, is get ready to work.
Nope, look at me and talk.
No, what I said all last year was you need to have your top 20 RFPs in place and ready to go, because if there is money left in one of those lines and there is a project worthy of moving forward on, then we can move forward on it. Last year, we backed out of a project very late in the season, and there were no, and just so people understand, because, you know, I listen to all the crap out there, quite frankly, and when they say there was a rush to spend all the money, reality, we couldn't have spent any of the money because there was no due diligence. A lot of those projects takes months of planning, architects, engineering, even to get the RFP, even if you didn't need those things, takes months in some cases. So my point in all of this is, if there's an underexpended line, it's not because there isn't a need, it's more process orientated.
And time.
Well, yeah,
Timing,
the
yeah.
process time, yeah. So that was my point.
Any other questions about what Justin just spoke? I do think it's funny at the middle school emergency lights, unusual number.
What is that?
Yeah, it was, we might have spent $3,000 on emergency lights over there. It's weird.
Orange Miles hitting him? I mean, what's happening?
What's that?
Our
Age,
age, okay.
just age and you know.
Yeah.
What does that mean though, unusual number? Like we had
Usually
too many installed?
No,
or
too many were
not?
burning out. An unexpected number were.
A lot of them weren't working.
They weren't working.
It sounds suspicious.
And we put some mitigation in certain places, putting cages around them and so forth.
What was the unanticipated intercom system problem?
Over at the high school, they couldn't, not every classroom or area of the building was getting those messages. And in terms of safety and emergency management, that was something that we needed to.
That's a problem.
But just having like unexpectedly some starts working, or?
Just old.
Oh.
All right, cool. Next.
Next, Ken, thank you so much for doing that. Dean, could we do the slideshow for this next one? Perfect, nice job. At the last, I believe it was the public hearing, the board had tasked us with bringing back some potential numbers for kindergarten. As you know, you have a warrant article that's going to go in front of the voting body. It's warrant article 3. And really what it is asking to do is simply change the articles of agreement and give the district some clarity in terms of the obligation to serve students, and extending that from grades 1 to 12, from grades kindergarten through 12. So the first thing I wanted to point out to the board is where we currently are. So this is our fiscal 25 year operating budget, the year that we're currently in. And in that budget, 4 major things are contained. We have 13.5 full-time equivalency kindergarten teachers. And their total compensation is listed there at $1,356,540. We have a transportation contract that brings kindergarten students to school. That total transportation contract for the district is $2.7 million. It's for regular ed transportation. We all know that special education transportation for students would continue to happen as it's happening now for those students who are attending kindergarten and would be billed on a per diem basis. The third major component in the budget is facilities. We've got money in the CIP line. We've got money that we just talked about for repair and maintenance and facility, and also our facility staff, our custodians and our skilled technicians that are serving the facility buildings around the district, including kindergarten rooms. And we have classroom materials that are currently in the budget, kindergarten classroom materials. That's what's currently there. Thank you. What the district would lose moving to full-time kindergarten. What you're looking at here is the fiscal 24 actuals of kindergarten tuition revenue collected by each of the 4 towns. And then for a total revenue loss of $709,238. So that number, $709,238, that was the actual money that we took in from kindergarten tuition last year. If we move to full day tuition-free kindergarten, that tuition would no longer be revenue the district would be collecting.
Okay.
However, the district will be gaining additional adequacy money. So what I'm giving you here is the number that I currently have. It's the fiscal 26 projection from the Department of Education. It lists the half adequacy payment for a kindergarten student at $2,132.82. So we would be getting that additional money per student that was enrolled with us. We have talked to the Department of Education, and how they would calculate that is using the number 189 students if we moved there in fiscal year 26, for a grand total of additional revenue of $403,102.98. So what I'd ask the board to consider as the methodology to use is a pretty simple subtraction problem to be really clear with the community about what the cost or new cost of kindergarten may be. You have a loss of tuition revenue, you have a gain of adequacy revenue, and you have the difference between those of $306,135.02. And that's what I would position to board to consider as potentially the cost of kindergarten when or if you should make the decision to move there.
Is that for year 1 of kindergarten?
Year 1 in yes, year 1.
And how is that differentiated in the years after that?
So after that, Ken, could you go back a slide? Right there is, after that, this grant, stabilization grant will go away. And the kindergarten students enrolled would be enrolled or given the adequacy money to make them whole. Meaning each student would be bringing in $21,3282 times 2 for the full adequacy payment from the state of New Hampshire. So that adequacy revenue that you see in this slide continues to come into the district each year because it's new to us, because currently we're not collecting it now.
Go ahead, Brady. Sorry, Katie.
Just to clarify, the 13.5 is the current teachers, but we would need to add 1.5 FTEs.
So 13.5 is our current FTE teachers. Looking at what the work that the committee did, we feel really confident that we could serve upwards of 280 kindergarten students with that number. The district would need to consider adding a teacher if we maxed out our kindergarten anything between above 280 and capping over at about 300. And that is 60 to 80 more students than we currently enroll now.
And we'd be getting additional adequacy aid for those 60 to 80 multiplied, 2.1.
The conversation at the public hearing was $4 million it will cost. So, because you have to take each kid and multiply it by the $20,000 cost per student, and then you take away the $4,000. But that cost per student includes things we've already budgeted for. correct?
Yeah, the first slide, the slide we're currently looking at here, these are items currently in the operating budget.
Thank you.
Actually, I think.
Done, and then Jack.
Just building on that a little bit, when you think about each kid, what they are actually costing us, it's not like a standard amount because there's a different kid with different supports, et cetera, that are included in that. So you have an average there. And in a situation like this, kindergarten, you're not adding a bunch of kids who have a history of, expensive outside services to the degree that you're going to have for students that are further along, that have had an opportunity to have those things correctly dealt with. And I just think people look at it like every kid is that 20 million, $20,000, person going through or more. Is not the case.
Jack.
So, I thought about this a lot since the public hearing. And one of the ways I looked at it is if you're living in a house and with your significant other and your rent is $1,000 a month and you have twins, the cost of renting doesn't go to, you don't multiply times two. It doesn't go to $2,000 a month because now you have two more people in there. So actually, a better way of looking at it is what is the impact? Because there are so many fixed costs here that will not change. What we haven't talked about is the financial benefit on the backside of all of this. But what I want to make sure, and look, at the public hearing, they're very smart people. They know better. They know that it wasn't $20,000 a kindergarten student. A year. I don't want to walk into deliberative session, I'll tell you right now, and I'm gonna support this because it's for all the right reasons, and find out we missed something. I mean, yeah, we're gonna use a little bit more TP probably. A few more drinking cups, but that's inconsequential in the scheme of things. But I wanna make sure we don't miss anything, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we can do this, but I would be willing, whatever the impact is, to find something somewhere to opt, because this is one of the most important things in my mind that we can do. If the district is truly focused on education, truly focused on the proficiency rates and getting averages up, this is one of the things where we can actually make a difference. Sorry.
No, you're fine. When you have this on the warrant article, will it be broken down cost per thousand per town? Like the other ones?
No.
Your legal counsel has reviewed the article and it does not have a cost item.
Right. All it is changing the articles of agreement. That's all it does. It doesn't put a cost on there. That would be for us this will be for us to talk about at the hearing.
Okay.
And then at deliberative, they ask them as well.
And our meeting on Monday, the 27th.
So this methodology will be visually available to those we're discussing with.
I would be open to any and all feedback between now and Monday, but yes, this is gonna be, the bulk of the presentation on Monday evening.
Any other questions about what we've been presented in the admin report?
Awesome. Last thing to celebrate before I defer to Sandy and Chris is March 5th. Our building administrators had come to us with a proposal to hold a kind of a round robin 5th grade dodgeball competition.
Oh my God, yes.
Over on the main campus and involve, district administrators and the middle school admin as referees for those kids who are gonna be kind of looking ahead to the middle school they're gonna be attending, involving hopefully some of the high school staff and teams and kids. And just getting a chance for the community to come together to target 5th graders that are gonna be making
Target them.
not lost on
Poor
me.
choice of
Going over there, both Dr. Martin and I have very strong feelings about dodgeball. But we're looking forward to having, I think, a whole lot of fun that day. And just wanted to point out that this is not something that's required of it. I mean, this is something that our own staff brought and just thought it was going to be a good way to kind of celebrate being part of Timberlane.
Jack and I would like to broadcast this.
I am sure that when we get closer, there will be an invitation for the board to hold a team and participate actively. So
do this.
Are we gonna be the average Joes?
so more details to come.
No, I just wanted to say how great it is that you are gonna have all the fifth graders from the district up at the middle school all together to
With
do
their
something really
families.
cool with all the administrators, community members. That I think is fantastic. I just think it's great.
And then chuck balls at each other.
And it's appreciated and, you know,
We're objects of
if we
human
could have
beings.
some version of that at the deliberative session, that would be awesome.
Someone is gonna bring tomatoes, don't say that.
I'm just kidding, obviously.
I do know that Sandy and Chris have a couple items that they want to share as
Go
well.
ahead.
Sure. I just have two. I mentioned the other night that I was able to go to the middle school TRSB meeting, which was great. So we had some great conversation about upcoming dates and opportunities for them to come and be part of the process of deliberative and some of the public hearings. So I just want to thank those parents and Mr. Mensis for organizing that. It was a really great night. And then also just wanted to announce that we are actively working on planning to provide childcare on the evening of deliberative session. And so our intent right now is to open up free childcare during deliberative. It will be from 6:30 drop off. We're projecting that that will wrap up at 9 because we are relying on some student volunteers, student council, some of our honor society students, other students in clubs will be helping to run some of the activities. Adult supervision will be provided by our administrators who are not residents and will not be part of the voting at deliberative. So we'll be very well staffed. We're planning on holding it in the high school cafeteria and gym as different locations, probably have some age groups once we see how many children might be registered for this. And so we know that our administrators will be there beyond 9, but we plan on releasing the students at 9 because it is a school night and we want to be mindful of their time. So we will be sending out a flyer likely next Tuesday, along with a link to a Google form to pre-register. So we are asking families to pre-register and let us know their intent so that we can plan appropriately. The ages are ages 3 and up. We are asking that any 3-year-olds be potty trained, just because we are not equipped at the high school to manage children who are not yet potty trained. But we will have adults, admin, who work with a range of ages rather. And so we're planning just some fun activities. There'll likely be a movie. There'll be some fun interactive games, potentially some arts and crafts and things like that to occupy the kids while the parents are able to go to deliberative and be part of the conversations and hopefully be able to vote. So we are planning that, more to come on that. So
Do you two have questions?
She answered my question.
Okay.
Sorry.
On the Google
form, will you be asking for ages?
yes, so the Google form, the intent is twofold: to plan appropriately based on ages and how many children, but also to collect some emergency contact information so that, you know, we're able to know whom to contact and when, and also to ask for the contact information of the adult who will be present at deliberative should we need to go and find them during the childcare session. So it's collecting some of that emergency information on top of planning so we can coordinate everything appropriately. So, yeah. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
Excellent. I am happy to report that Mr. Broad invited me. He didn't invite Mrs. Allaire or Mr. Krieger, but I was invited to see the physics class. I think the physics class activity on the scientific process, drag and velocity. I believe the students demonstrated this to you folks last year. It was an excellent. I saw 3 presentations. I will say the first time I did a scientific poster of that nature displaying data was when I did my doctoral work, and I was extremely impressed with what the students had done. They are already having those experiences now, and as they move forward in their schooling, it will not be as foreign a project as it was for me. Also, it was very impressive to see the number of young women in this physics class. When I went to school, when Moses wore sandals and walked the planet, there were very, very few women in physics classes, and so I think that's a very impressive thing. Also, the teacher whispered in my ear that they do extremely well.
I said that, I get in trouble.
So in the world of facilities, we have a new full-time first shift HVAC person, thank you, that we will be bringing forward at the next board meeting, which will save us a great deal of money on some of the services we've had to contract out during the day. We've had a couple of custodial interviews that look very promising. That we believe are a direct result of the advertisement we put in the Union Leader for positions. So we're certainly going to activate that again going forward. 2 schools I mentioned earlier, we're just about done the review process for their school approval, for facilities approval. That's Pollard and Danville. It's been very, very thorough and very time consuming for staff. And I am pleased to report that we have that onboarding process for Mr. Janvrin, but I will also be at the same time revisiting my 100-day entry plan, which has been sitting on a shelf. I've been trying to work with my other direct reports to the best of my ability, but now this is an opportunity to regroup and try to do this job the way it was intended, what the vision was for this position. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay. We went ahead and did the personnel report. Committee reports. I'll start with Jack.
Done.
Nothing. Done. Me either. Mark?
I'm good.
Shauna?
Policy committee meeting for the month of February is being moved from the first Thursday to Monday, February 10th, due to the deliberative being scheduled on the same day. And wellness committee met on January 8th. A lot of really great discussion about wellness initiatives that are going on across the districts for the faculty, the staff, the students, really engaging conversation, and some thoughtful information regarding nutrition within the wellness policy. Will be going back to the policy committee that I will be taking back there for further discussion and feedback there.
Thank you. Kim?
No, we talked all about CNA for most of our board meeting.
Sure did.
The next meeting is February 4th. That's it.
Great.
Strategic plan met and we discussed learning with universal design for learning. We talked about community with the focus of evaluations and communicating across the district's facilities. We were waiting on that role to be filled, so I'm very excited to add a new member. And then personnel, we have the 2 contracts into the warrant article, which was great. Our next meeting is March 20th at 5:30 in the SAU board. And CIP's next meeting is February 17th, 6:15 in the SAU board.
Great. Alyssa?
Nothing.
Paul?
Nothing.
Alrighty. Do we have any other business this time? Jack?
So, I wish I had said this first, but I guess Governor Ayotte is going to introduce a bill about no cell phones in schools. I did watch a article last night on, maybe it was the day before, on TV about New York is probably gonna go cellless in the schools. And New Jersey is doing, it was kind of cool. Put your cell phone in this pouch, they lock it up when you go to school. At the end of the day, they unlock it, and they were interviewing the teachers and the staff and the students. Grades are going up, kids are talking to each other, they're not looking down all day. The feedback has been incredibly positive. I just wish it was my idea. Sorry. I brought it up at the last meeting about finding some way, maybe once a month, talking about proficiency rates and performances and kind of make that a standing thing. And I would love to see a quarterly report around progress in school. Even if it means testing once a quarter, my biggest issue is nothing, I don't care what's happening in the state. I don't care what's happening in the nation. I care what's happening here. And I just feel as though that by the time we get results, the ship has already sailed. And that's no reflection on the administration or on the board, but we have to deal with issues when we have them and we don't know how we're doing until it's too late. And I just feel as though it's the board's responsibility to be in tune with progress. And I'm not sitting here telling you I have the answer, but I would love to have a report and I would love to make it part of an agenda once a month to talk about these things, and I'm all ears on that. And that's it.
Sandy, do you feel like with testing and everything, like what's actually feasible?
So, well, what I would start with is, and I know Jack, you and I have talked about this a few times.
We have.
Yeah. And right, so there are a variety of different types of assessments that we administer, not just as our district, but it's just considered best practice to have what's considered a balanced assessment system in place across the district. And so there are different types of assessments that are administered regularly for very different purposes. So when we think about proficiency rates and the measures that are often used in the public at the state level and at the federal level to determine whether or not a school is making progress in good standing, from an accountability perspective, those are the state level assessments that are administered every spring. And Mr. Sapia is right, we don't receive those results. They're not publicly released probably for 6 to 7 months after the administration date. Individual students and families, teachers, districts, we get individual student results. We get some preliminary results that we can use to make decisions on. But from an educational standpoint, that type of standardized assessment gives us a benchmark of how our students are performing against grade level standards that guide our curriculum documents, they guide our work that we do with students. But they're considered a summative assessment that gives us that kind of benchmark measure. We do administer other assessments, however, that are much more timely and administered in live time to make decisions in live time. So, we talk about iReady. That's considered a universal screener and a diagnostic assessment that gives us data on where students are at against those same standards. But it gives us data that allows us to drill down at a much more personalized level, student by student, to what their needs are against sub-skills within the standards, to understand where students are at, what they're ready to learn next, where the gaps might be at a very isolated, discrete skill level, and then recommendations for next steps for those students. So that's, I think, the actionable data that you're talking about, that we do have in place. Those are administered 3 times a year. So bringing that type of data once a month wouldn't be feasible. Beyond that, we have other assessments administered at the classroom level. Some of them are through special education, through the goals that are identified for students. Some are through regular education. But those are much more specific to formative assessments that give a small benchmark measure on how students are doing in the classroom. It could be something as quick as a barometer of how, Vista 5 being I completely understand, this being I don't understand at all. Teachers are doing that in live time in the classroom to understand if they need to reteach material that they just went over with students, and responding and intervening in that way. And then summative assessments that might be unit assessments, quizzes, projects, essays, performance measures, things of that nature that we use to influence how teachers are responding to student performance throughout their entire trajectory over the course of the year. So that academic accountability data is the one measure that the state identifies based on federal compliance guidelines to determine federal funding, right, and things of that nature, whether or not schools are deemed to be in need or requiring additional targeted assistance or comprehensive assistance are the terms that they use now. It used to be No Child Left Behind. Now they use different terminology. But the type of, I think, activity that you're talking about is wanting to respond to students. That's really what's happening in our schools at the classroom level, whole class. And then we have intervention groups that we establish. And then we have on top of that for select students through special education, additional assessments that they're responding to as well.
So I'm clear, it would be inconceivable to think that we would get a report once a month.
It would depend
I
on
would
the
s-
type of data that you would want.
What I said
Yeah.
was once a quarter, like kind of like a report card. When the kids get report cards, we get those report cards. And this way here, we see whether we're moving forward or moving back. And at some point in time, there's gonna be some standard and some level of accountability. And when I see science proficiencies at 27% and social studies at 27%, I mean, I understand the math thing, not everyone's gonna get algebra. But math is, and history is just a function of studying, unless I'm getting this all, and I don't mean to simplify it.
So
but-
actually, it's not just a matter of studying and memorization. So it's much more connected right now to application of skills and a higher level and deeper thought process of problem solving, making connections between what they're reading, what they've learned, applying it in live time to sometimes it might be a real world scenario that they're presented with on an assessment. So it's really not rote memorization
Part of my
any longer.
methodology here, though, is the world lives on those proficiency rates, whether you or I like them or not, that's what everybody points to. And, you know, and I said it when I was campaigning, we have proficiency rates here, graduation rate there.
Sure.
And to that lay person, it doesn't make sense. And I also think that education, and I've said it 100 times, doesn't start when the school door opens and then when the school door closes. So the more we can be out in front of the public saying we need to be addressing these shortfalls or these successes, I think is important. And I just feel like we get caught up in a lot of the minutia around, and our primary goal is to get those kids those foundations. And I know all the hard work. I'm not discounting the
No.
tons of hard work.
And
that
we would
goes
be
in
happy
around
to
it.
bring that data. I think, a couple of things I just want to clarify that there is no state assessment, federal assessment, standardized assessment for social studies, not in the state of New Hampshire. There never has been. So we would not be able to bring data on history or social studies performance. Science, there is a state science assessment. We just reviewed state assessment data at CNA 3 weeks ago, January, whenever our January meeting was, with an intent to bring that forward to the board after deliberative. So you will be seeing that coming up soon. We can also certainly bring iReady data. I think what's challenging is that data reflects end of year goals. So you might see at the beginning of the year a significant number of students who are below what you might hope, but they should be because they haven't learned the material and the skills yet. So we can certainly do that and we can talk about it.
I just want to get information out in front of the public, information to us. And if there's actionable things, we can do it. And obviously, I'm not an educator. Some people on this board are, and I have confidence in you and Justin, but I feel like we need to stay informed, and I think the public needs to stay informed as to those efforts.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Dawn and then Bree.
Sandy, in Power School now, what can parents see? Can they see competency attainment or just grades or
Both. They can see both.
And by looking at the competency piece, does it address some of the questions that Jack has?
Perhaps, maybe not, not
Are
at,
they just
not at
course
that level.
competencies
They're
regarded
course
to-
competencies.
okay.
There are course competencies and the school-wide competencies, and I know, Mark, you asked about the speaking and listening competency. So we have other school-wide competencies that are prevalent across all of our courses that are on the report card as well. Those are reported on work study practices, things like that, once a marking period. Some assignments are connected to competency. And so in Power School, parents can log into their account, they can see their students' current grades, and there's a little indicator where if you hover over the box where the numerical or letter grade is for an assignment, if it is connected to a competency, it will pop up and show what the competency language is and what the score is. And then when the report cards come out, they get, based on the marking period, both a numerical, alphanumeric grade, and the competency grades for all of the competencies that were applicable for that marking period.
So the teacher's focus is going to be on those things
Yes.
in terms of reporting out, to show student progress in the courses that they're taking.
Yes.
Okay. But they're not looking at standard scores or, on as regular a basis, but more, and when they look at that, they're not looking at individuals, they're looking more at, trends in their classroom.
They're looking at trends in their classroom. We're actually in the process of scheduling building-wide meetings with building administrators to review their building data from last spring, which they've already looked at, but we're drilling down at a deeper level to look at subgroup scores. We look at our identified populations. We look at other subgroups to see if, right, we have certain subgroups that are underperforming as compared to the whole group. And from those meetings with building level admin, they then meet with grade level teams, departments as appropriate, and dig into the data to identify trends, to set some actionable goals, to think about their curriculum. Maybe we don't devote enough time to these areas of language arts in 10th grade, and then they hopefully make some goals for change for the next year.
As I see what we do in curriculum instruction, when we're looking at the course content pieces that are adjusted up, one way or another to include things, that seems to be the result of those meetings.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm pretty satisfied with the degree of attention to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
in meetings that they-
Yeah, and to Mr. Sabat, to your point, we discuss a lot of this at CNA. Jack. We talk about a lot of the things that I think you're looking at through curriculum and assessment, but we're happy to bring that here and report out publicly for the full board and for the community as well. Because there are things that we do talk about connected to curriculum and how data often drives some of that decision making. So we're happy to do that.
Thanks, Sandy.
Sure. Great.
And I'll count this as the meeting we talked about this month.
Great.
So I just wanna reiterate that we went over extensively how a lot of those are counted as zeros in that proficiency percentage, dropping us down. And if we look to the state level, I think we're actually doing pretty good comparatively around the state,
But-
even though that percentage might be.
We keep saying this. It's the same for every district.
The zeros.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why
Right,
I'm
but
saying
everybody-
compare, so if everyone's dropped down, but we're just above state average, even though that average is 27.
Hold on. We're gonna let Bree and then Paul and then Dawn.
That'd be the case. That would raise everybody up the
Raise your hand
same.
to go. I'm so sorry.
But it would also raise everybody down the same. That's what she's saying.
And then I believe we are initiating a 3-tier approach in the future coming down the pipe to hopefully offer more support for those proficiencies and allowing more support where it's needed and kind of triggering that and tying everything together in a neat little bow.
Paul.
I would say the next time the district is looking at, so you were talking about iReady, right?
Yep.
If we do have the opportunity for assessment and it doesn't come with a comprehensive AI platform that we can, I haven't read this article yet, but, because we use it for, we just got exposed to the first round, but the second round of associated employee engagement surveys, like when you have 1,000 people filling out a 43 question thing, it's unbelievable. I mean, identifying gaps and anyway, that needs to be a part of anything that we would invest in. Even if it's just an assistant for the experts, such as
Sure.
yourself,
Yeah.
to say, hey, you might wanna look at this
To
gap.
analyze the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just direct you in ways. Sometimes we'll have some ways to fill those gaps, but I mean, but that in combination with the expertise that you and the team have, I mean, that is just not just a time saver and money saver, just a quicker way to probably a better way to look at things quicker, not wait for 7 months on things, like state tests, that's crazy. But yeah, it would be pretty quick and and when 5.0 comes out, when GPT 5, which is, that's gonna dwarf what's happening in GPT-4 right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's gonna be pretty amazing, the tools that'll be available for your people.
I'm actually gonna let Mark go because he's not been able to speak yet. Then Dawn.
Going with what these two other gentlemen said, I think there is a consensus in the board or a desire to have some more up-to-dates.
Sure.
And obviously the statewide doesn't make sense. Did I hear you correctly that iReady, there's some sort of cumulative 3 times a year?
We administer, it's a benchmark assessment. We administer it 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring.
And the teachers use that to see trends in the classroom, areas they need to focus on more.
to focus on we actually just did a training last week with all of our elementary teachers, digging into the data, and it's really a focus on growth. So each student through the platform at the fall assessment, they get two different growth targets. One is for typical growth, and that's really just to maintain where they're currently at, and then a number for stretch growth. And the goal is by the end of the year, right, everyone 100% is making their typical and their stretch, and so the teachers are using that regularly.
I'm familiar with the tool from
Yeah.
before when I was on CNA, and I think it's a phenomenal tool that has been actually utilized well. And, that can't be said universally. That being said, could we use that to look back a year ago? Classes are different, but and I know that they're not going to be proficient when they're just a couple months in because they haven't learned the material yet. But comparing class A to the class prior to them to the class prior, that's something I would like to see. And I think the community would as well. We're all suffering from the COVID, post-COVID, et cetera.
Sure.
That being said, we need to make progress, year over year over year and see it. And if we're not making progress, have some greater visibility to that.
Sure.
And I know that there's some, differing agreement as to standardized testing, but it is a benchmark that a lot of places do use. So would it be possible to see that, 3 times a year when it comes out, the results 3 times a year?
Sure.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay.
I heard Sandy say yes.
Don's gonna have last comment, then we're moving on.
All right, 2 comments. One, not every school has they all have the same challenge, but they don't have the same number of people who end up not taking the test. And a lot of that has to do with, how well the significance of that is sold to the community. To the degree to which parents are going to support their involvement in those tests. The more ways that people can motivate kids to see value in taking that test, and families, in general, parents, the more likely you're going to not have that take away. And there are districts that seldom go, over the allotted number that you're not penalized for having missed. And there are ways when you have a situation where somebody can't take it for a reason, there are ways to not have that impact your score through, applying basically or appealing, to the state for, a waiver on that. But that's a serious, thing to note that does have an impact, and it's not the same for every school. The challenge is the same for every school. The degree to which people are successful in getting people to do it is not the same.
I would say though, you'd be completely out of line to suggest that you would know which ones would go up and down. On the whole, it's the same, except for probably the upper echelon of socioeconomic advantaged areas like Exeter, Bedford. These schools are not going to have participation problems. And then you've got the outlier down here, which is like the lesser socioeconomic. But that big
I
middle,
wouldn't want to guess at that stuff, Paul.
that's the same.
I wouldn't want to guess at that because I don't think that.
It's a good guess.
I think that's a guess. And I'll just put it that. And I've
it's
talked to
just-
enough principals over time to know the degree to which it matters to them and in their school.
Oh, yeah.
And to some districts that focus on that score more, and as a result, put more pressure on people to get there, to take those exams, to try to sell that idea. So, it's not
But
the
to
same.
suggest that we're worse than everybody else on average is not true.
Did I say that?
He didn't.
No, I'm saying if that was the case, if we were suffering more from that, you're suggesting
We'd have to do a lot better
that our
to end up with a score.
that our
was competitive.
participation rate is lower than everybody else's.
We have had years where we had great participation rate and years where it seemed to be.
Which matters, by the way, I agree.
Which when we didn't.
Yep.
And it does have an impact.
Right, which is why I say those outliers on the tops and bottoms, those top five, are always gonna be there, because they're never gonna have participation rate problems.
Let's agree that half the schools participate less than average and move on.
Okay.
Yeah, but but the citizens call us out on this. They see this.
Oh,
Like,
that's true too.
like we say it over and over. It's like, well, we have all these things that are zeros. Yes, so does everybody else, except for the bougie up here and the disadvantage down here. The beefy middle is all the same, just based on lots of averages.
Hold on, Don, did you have another comment?
I'll let the other one go.
And I'll leave it at this. It does to a certain extent have an effect on your property values, because that's when people want to move into a town with kids. First thing they do is look at the school system. So it behooves everyone to have their kids take the gosh darn tests.
Oh,
There you go.
I just want to remind this board that we are never gonna make everybody happy. And the only thing we can do is do the best thing for the most people. And scores are just scores. They do not identify a student's capability or their potential or anything about it. Funny enough, when I was in 7th grade, I was not identified to do pre-algebra. And guess what? Guess who graduated as valedictorian of her class in high school?
Can I guess?
And nobody else in that pre-algebra class who went on to algebra in middle school were anything in the high school. So yeah, I get it. We have to do test scores, but honestly, I would really love just to throw them out the window because they do not capture a student's capabilities whatsoever.
For us back in the day, I remember that being,
No.
you showed up, that said it's testing day.
You had to, yeah.
Yeah, there you
Once you
go.
were there, you did it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Once you were
so
asked.
Jack, do you have, anybody else have
I just
anything
have
else?
one more question about Justin's presentation. You
Yes.
said that, one more, I'm so sorry, I
No,
just
no,
forgot,
you-
and
it was
I wrote
something
it
new, it was
down.
good.
This is new.
I wrote
We're
it down
good.
and then I forgot to ask it.
Just consume a hard time.
You said the state is going by 189 students for kindergarten, why? Don't we have 205, 220?
We do, and they would all not qualify. So when you're paid inadequacy, you're paid in arrears. Okay? And we don't have any full day kids for them to go back and look at. We also have a situation where we've got different people paying different amounts. So they feel like they need to subtract from our total enrollment, which is I think is about 230 right now, and they feel safely, conservatively, 189 would qualify for this half adequacy piece.
So that's a subjective number, that's not like a formula, that's just some guy saying 189 sounds good. Sorry.
It's a good point.
it's the
Right?
It's not him, it's someone else
Some guy.
saying that.
it's not just some guy. It's the gentleman who sets the adequacy figures. He is our source of information and where we call to get this type of direction. So if we wanted the certainty, he's able to give us the dollar amount and he's able to give us a conservative number to multiply in terms of kids.
So that's not set in stone, that could actually look at.
It could look to, and again, your intent here as a board was looking at fiscal 27. Things could look radically different then in terms of what's in our operating budget at that point and what has happened with attrition, maybe what happens with kindergarten enrollment, because we've got a really good, robust drive to get kids into our school with early child find, and that could have a residual effect in the kindergarten enrollment. So we're 2 years out.
That's another reason why there's not a dollar figure attached to the warrant article.
That's right, yep, okay.
Alyssa.
I'm sorry, just a clarifying question to add on to what Kim just said. So the 189, that's supposedly the figure they're gonna use for the first year. So will that number change from year to year then, obviously? Because then we will then have the data, correct?
We would have a new number next year, and the adequacy number would also change because
So
we'll be
in
in the
theory,
next
that
fiscal
number
year too.
would go up.
Could.
Yes.
Or it could go
Second
down.
year.
And that $4,100 goes to every kid, right? That's what the state pays us per child,
Base adequacy.
base adequacy. Thank you, that's the word.
If you don't, excuse me, I'm so sorry. If you're not identified or an EL or socioeconomically disadvantaged, those are other things that are added, but the base adequacy for every kid is $4,100 right now.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
The long and short seems to be that for about $300,000 a couple of years from now, in difference, we might not actually be the last school in the state, district in the state to adopt full-time kindergarten.
Wouldn't that be great?
Only 4 left.
Could you imagine that?
Could we imagine
Amen.
what we could do for our little
All good
kiddos?
points. All right, go ahead.
I have another business for the board. Wanted to just have an opportunity for you folks. I know that you weren't all together as a full team at the public hearing. You voted to recommend some warrant articles at that evening. So this is an opportunity tonight. Monday, the 27th is the last Monday in January. Kelly and I have promised each other we're not going to cure a procedural defect this year with the warrant because it's just crazy language. You're going to attest it tonight. You have an opportunity to vote as a full board again to recommend or not recommend all the warrants. You can do it as a full group tonight, or you could do as a full group tonight the articles, really the citizen petitions that you did not vote on at the public hearing, but that you may want to consider taking a position on and communicating to the community where you stand on these pieces.
No. So, all right, we could, do we have to revote?
I don't think you do. It's just an option we wanted to provide you folks because you weren't
We weren't,
you
it would
weren't a
be
full
one,
team, right?
right, it would be one abstaining from.
There are a few discrete pieces of information that, until I have it, I would be uncomfortable voting this evening.
Okay. My understanding is that if you're not voting before deliberative and the articles are changed at deliberative,
We have to.
you will not be able to put a vote on there because you didn't do it prior to the deliberative session.
Thought it was the other way around.
No. So deliberative, it has all of our votes on it. But if the citizens petitions, we didn't vote on them because historically,
Right.
boards have never voted on citizen petitions. What he's saying is that we can't, after the meeting, be like, oh yeah, we're gonna vote and we recommend or don't recommend. What happens is
Just on the citizens petitions.
any of them. What happens after deliberative, though, is say the people are able to cut the budget by a new number, or they add money.
Right.
Then afterwards, we would have to have another meeting to vote on that.
That's the way I understand it.
Right, but not.
And why you're able to vote on it a second time is you voted on it prior to deliberative.
Right.
If you go into the
Correct.
warrants without any recommendation from the board and they change at deliberative, you will not be able to record a recommended vote for the voting session on March 11th.
This only pertains to our citizens.
I was just gonna
petitions that we
say,
did
so
not
as of right
Is
now, that
there-
would only pertain to the citizens
It would- it
petitions,
would-
because we voted on the others.
It would apply to the petitions that you haven't voted on, which is Article 4, 5, 6, 7, all 4 of the citizen petitions.
Let me ask one last question. Is there a time frame in which we have to do that?
Today.
Wow.
I would test the warrant the last Monday in January.
So it's gotta be the night.
Is there a specific one, I mean, Mark, is anyone else uncomfortable voting?
Is it possible to do it on Monday at the
public hearing.
public hearing?
Is everyone coming to that?
That would only be a small group.
I think the public hearing is specialized in the fact that that is
Yeah.
the kind of limited agendas that you're there to talk specifically about that.
Could we have a meeting before that? As a board?
Like a
Half an hour
6:30 like
before.
we did
You have to
before.
post it 1-1.
You could do that.
Is everybody gonna be there though? That was the problem, right? That we weren't.
Well, wait a minute. Do any of you want to vote on the citizens? That's literally the only thing that matters are these citizens petitions. That's it. We've already voted on the other ones. The only thing we would do right now is if we wanted to re-vote was so Paul could have a chance to vote. That's it. That's literally it. That's all we have to do.
Bringing it here just didn't want you missing the opportunity that you had because you're gathered here this evening.
Did you already vote?
We did.
Was it unanimous?
Yeah, except for
I'm
you.
not gonna change anything, I'm good.
Okay.
What-
I mean, I think we, I mean,
I think we're good.
I think we're good. I don't think we need to vote on the citizens petitions. I mean, maybe once in the blue moon has a board voted on a citizens petition, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we're against them. I mean, we're gonna show that at deliberative. All right,
You just want that one more number, I mean, that's fine, I agree with you guys, so.
okay. All right. So are we good? Because
We're good.
this is your chance. It's it.
Wait, I kind of want it to be like,
Come on, Kim.
I'm sorry, but I want it to be all unanimous and we all are pretty much unanimous on everything.
He was
You know,
excused for a reason. It's okay.
You don't want that one.
I don't want that one hanging out the end.
Oh, we can vote on now, huh?
So I may be the hanging
You
chad.
chose the one.
Just.
Well, I don't know, what Mark
All
was
right,
Move on.
hold up.
It's still, yeah.
We have already voted. Paul's good with it. I get your sentiment, but we're done.
There won't be a one?
No.
There won't be a,
No,
no,
because
he
he
wasn't
wasn't
there.
present.
That's what you know, or whatever.
Yeah, so it's,
Oh,
it's,
all right.
yeah,
I'm
it's the
good then.
0-0. Okay, cool beans. All right, so we're good.
I'm good.
We're good.
Excellent.
Appreciate
I
that.
have no other business.
Thank you. Thank you for throwing that monkey. I really appreciate that. All right, any other business? All right, do we have any other delegates and individuals? Unfortunately, we have to go into a non-public.
Make a motion to go into non-public under 91-A:3 subparagraph C.
I have a motion by Shauna and a second. Could I please get a roll call vote? It was Bree.
Paula Kane,
Yes.
let me get my list.
Yes.
Alyssa Claus.
Yeah.
Bree Woodworth. Kim McCormick.
Yes.
Jonda Van Thorn.
Yes.
Mark Sherwood.
Yes.
Kate Knudsen.
Yes.
Ron Woodward.
Yes.
Jack Sapia.
All right, thank you. We will not be back other than to seal the minutes. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the team.